All right, welcome everyone to the pseudo initiation into level 2 of the Anahat meditation system. We're not officially in level 2 yet. That'll be next week. This is a bridge into level 2. It's an introduction to the ideas, but it's a really important class. So I would say this is preparation for level 2 of the Anahat meditation system. And they're teachings that focus primarily on samadhi. So you can't understand level 2 without this class. So this would be a good preparation. I don't think we'll get on the meditation cushion. I'll probably just be sitting at the computer doing a lot of PowerPoint. I spent the day setting up a PowerPoint presentation. I was telling the group before we started, I'm in Southern California, even though I'm up at 5,000 feet in the mountains. It's crazy hot here. So I'm trying not to have the AC on in this room. If it gets too hot, I'll turn it on. But right now, hopefully we have good audio video quality. If you're watching this as you're recording right now, if you haven't done level 1 of the Anahat meditation system, then you should. You won't be harmed by watching this class. I'm sure you'll actually get a lot out of it. But the way to start the system would be to go to onlinemonastery.com. On the home page, you'll see an introductory 10-minute video or 6-minute video, and then you'll see a 2.5-hour introduction. That explains how to start with the system. Anybody who's here live now ideally has been through all the level 1 classes. It doesn't mean you're proficient at it. Definitely doesn't mean you've mastered any of it. But if you're here, I hope it's because you feel inspired to be here. You're more than welcome to be here either way. But there's no way to grasp level 2 until you've been through level 1. So on the screen right now, I have 3 images. And the bottom one, if you look at them kind of stacked, would in a sense represent level 1. And then up to level 2. Not able to see video. You guys should be seeing, hopefully, a PowerPoint and me on the top right. Is that the case? Are you seeing PowerPoint and me? Yes, yes. Let me just restart that just in case. All right, so that's just me. And then screen share. Let's go to this version of the PowerPoint. And then we'll go to slideshow. All right, so and then let me get the chat pod back. Okay, at this moment, those are your, sometimes you can't get the chat pod back. Apologies on the technical difficulty. Let me just be sure we're all on the same page. Yeah, you can't get the chat pod easily back sometimes. Okay, so, all right, you guys said it was good. All right, let me go back to that sharing version, and then I'm just going to assume it's good. I'll try to get the chat pod back once we start. All right. Let's go to my screen. I'm going to keep going. I don't see the chat pod now, but I'll go back to it to check in every so often. And this room is getting probably too warm to do without AC. All right, so we're moving into level 2 of the Anahat system. Yet we're not quite ready for that yet. So this introductory classes preparation is really important. On the screen, you have the idea of an image below of the 12 meditations at level 1. As we move into level 2, it's the same 12 meditations, but on a different level. It's more complex, it's harder, it's fascinating, and today's class really is the essence of what's going to be happening as we move into level 2. Because I didn't invent the system, I've had to meditate over the past few weeks on, all right, what is level 2? What's happening here? And today is definitely going to explain what's happening in a really good way. Yet as I keep contemplating and being with it, it's, I know what's going on, and I know how level 2 first came to me, and that's how I'll be sharing with teaching you next week how to start the official level 2 meditations. But there's more than just the 12 meditations. I'm not saying there's additional meditations, but there's a much deeper understanding that we're going to go into tonight. And with that said, I'm just going to start moving through the PowerPoint, which I believe is the best way to present this. I could get on the cushion, but you don't need to see me. You need, like, seeing my physical body doesn't really matter anymore, because we're going to be dealing with the subtle energetics that go beyond the physical body. So there's really nothing for you to see with your physical eyes as we get into this. And that's kind of the whole point of this level, is we're moving beyond the physical. And that's what today's class is about. If you remember, the video won't matter, but for those of you here live, I tried to set up all the images so the camera up in the top right would fit reasonably well. If you remember this idea from Meher Baba in his book, God Speaks, we have the idea that God, the infinite, universal, pure consciousness, one without a second, said, let there be light. So the very source, God and beyond state, or God beyond the beyond, yet that which is beyond any intellectual conception. Nothing you can do with your imagination or your intellect can grasp what that reality is. You can experience it, you are it, you can go back to it because you've actually never left it. Yet you can't grasp it with your mind and you can see it with your body's eyes. So it requires a new way of experiencing, and not an unfamiliar way, because again, it's you. There can't be anything unfamiliar about it. Yet in this model of transmigration, after the quote fall, or the separation, or the detour into fear, as A Course in Miracles calls it, or what you might call the ego's journey, it's a excuse me, a journey into what appears to be time and space, right? And then you have a transmigration or reincarnation, where you, as the individualized essence, start feeling like you're more and more separate and as an individual. By the time you've evolved all the way to human, which you might say is like 13.8 billion years, or however long it took for you to get where you are now, now you experience yourself at the bottom of the image. I'll put the cursor where my consciousness is going. So here it's like most anybody who's here at level, or kind of the beginning of level 2 of the Anahat system, has obviously gone pretty far in not only the evolutionary journey and the human journey, but the spiritual journey. Right? And you're at a place where you're saying, when you're on your knees like that at the bottom of this image, you're saying there's got to be something more, right? Who am I? And we've been doing a meditation system that a lot of you know is very profound, really powerful, and intricate. Yet it has to go deeper, because what we've been doing is meditating largely on the bodily level. We're kind of marveling at the divine perfection that manifests the physical body, the divine proportion within the body, how being human is really interesting, right? Really unique. It's not, it's not like anything else on the planet, right? To be a self-conscious, upright walking primate, which is essentially what's going on. You're in there saying, am I really just a descendant of a monkey? Right? Like, who am I really? What's going on? Right? So we might have the evolutionary story of the body pretty well nailed down. But who are you? Right? Who is the you who's having this human experience? When you get to the peak of self-consciousness, where you start saying, there's got to be something more than matter, there's got to be something more than my body, then you do. You start waking up spiritually, become more spiritually aware. Yet there's a whole journey back into source. And even though you might create a spiritual lifestyle, right, like you change your diet, you start eating healthy, you start sitting in meditation, you're doing yoga, you're doing good things to others, and whatever it means to live a, quote, spiritual lifestyle, it doesn't mean you're actually journeying back to source, right? There's something that's called the spiritual ego, or a really good book some of you might want to read, you might feel inspired to. It's called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Trungpa Trungpa. The idea in those kind of writings is you can still be doing the human thing completely, believing you are a human being, thinking you are a human body, but you start doing things that seem, quote, spiritual, like wearing different clothing, or shaving your head, or changing where you live, or again, changing your food, or doing certain practices. That doesn't mean it's egoic, but the trap is it can become a huge ego trip where you actually think spirituality is spiritualizing a human being. There's nothing really spiritual about changing the physical body to look spiritual. Spirituality could be defined as putting your attention upon spirit, meditating on spirit, taking the inner journey. So on the whole right side of the screen, this involutionary journey has actually very little to do with the physical body at all. Right? When we meditate, we put the body in the lotus position, and we sit, and we, in a sense, withdraw our attention away from the physical world. We're putting our attention on spirit, on the spiritual world. Now, words can be really misleading because, like, this word spirit or spirituality is thrown around so easily. Yet, there is a reality called spirit. We can meditate on that reality. And even the Anahat meditation system, as groovy as I think a lot of you have found it so far, it could keep you focused only on your body. And if that is what happens through the whole meditation system, like yoga, for instance, it could be totally a body practice, right? Like you do yoga to get stronger, to get more flexible, to get better balance, to get healthier. But who's the object of that entire practice? The body, right? Everything you do in your human experience is centered around the body. It kind of makes the body your God, right? Like, I am going to get healthy. I am going to get fit. I am going to make this thing amazing. Good, keep doing that. But don't ever think that your vehicle, one of your vehicles, is you, right? It's okay to have a car and to keep improving your car and to love your car and to do things to your car. And that's the same, that I'm talking like, an actual automobile. But you're not your automobile. And when you get out of your automobile, you need to remember who's really most important. Like, the automobile is just a vehicle. In A Course in Miracles, it's very clear that you are spirits and that your body is only a communication device, right? For the Holy Spirit, for the higher, divine, wiser mind of God. The body is really just used to communicate. It has no other purpose. People think there's a purpose to the body because you think there's a whole lot to do in the physical plane. Most of what people do here, A Course in Miracles refers to it as a useless journey, right? You're doing things that actually aren't valuable in any real deep sense of the word. There's always some value in anything you do. Yet if you say, just like out of the blue, I'm going to go and start a lemonade stand in Wisconsin, and I'm going to help a lot of children. Right? That could sound whatever, I don't know. But I just made that up. Part of what we're going to look at today is the idea of make-believe, making things up, how the ego has ideas it comes up with that have nothing to do with who you really are, why you're really here. And that's a useless journey, right? To just come up with any idea that has no real value for your spirituality is just another ego trip. You might say it's just another lifetime within your lifetime now. So imagine if you take the rest of your life and go on a whole lot of different adventures, yet you never take this journey back into spirit. In a sense, all of those could be considered useless journeys. Now, that's not to judge. It's not to say there wouldn't be some value in some way. Yet, in A Course in Miracles model and the yogic model we're going to look at a lot today, there's understanding what's truly valuable from the idea of self-realization, from God realization. That's what's valuable. Anything else, there is, being of service to others, and I know you guys know, that's extremely valuable. But even if you're being of service just to help on the physical level, in A Course in Miracles, it begins by, in the introduction of What Are Miracles, one of the lines says, consciously selected miracles can be misguided. So even though you think you're doing the best possible thing for yourself or others, if it's your ego, no matter how holy it might seem, that initiated that movement, it could be a useless journey, a valueless journey. What I want to do today is prepare you for level 2 to know what to focus on and how to direct your attention to something much higher than the physical plane. This is going to lead tonight into teachings on samadhi and pacing us towards the out-of-body experience, which could lead to some very profound mystical experiences. There's a little warning, for getting into this level of things. Sorry, just look at the screen, never mind. So the little disclaimer would be kind of like how we began level 1. Best not to begin. Once begun, better finish. Because you're going to start putting your attention very intently on spirit as you move into level 2. And it makes the human experience less and less important. It makes all the journeys you used to go on less and less important. Right? Like all the pleasures of the body and all the adventures you take the body on. I'm not saying you don't go do other fun stuff. Right? There's a lot of joy to be experienced on this physical plane. It's not a negation of the physical plane. It's just, again, realizing there's something so much more valuable and so much more beautiful in the ascent back to God. So on the right side of the screen, we're looking at the different planes. And we're basically going to say the physical plane. I got other slides to help you to grasp this. The physical plane would be like the first chakra, basically level 1. Only level 1 because that's kind of where you find yourself now. Level 2 moving up is what we'll call the etheric plane. Then up to the astral plane, and that can be broken down into different levels, up into the mental causal plane, and eventually all the way back up, if you can see the cursor, the movement all the way back up where you as soul, to use that word loosely, and I'll work to define that today, takes the journey back into source. That's a useful journey. Anything else is basically keeping you in the cycle of reincarnation, known as samsara. Right, so in Sanskrit, samsara is the cycle of birth and death. But don't just say, oh God, Matthew's trying to keep me from having another lifetime. You're going to keep existing forever. The question is, where are you existing? And what are you doing there? And to start gaining access to these higher planes, at least gives you more choice because you know these planes exist. You realize you don't have to be in your body 24 hours a day, and you can start putting your attention on the higher planes. That's what level 2 of Anahat meditation is all about. And to be able to do it, you have to understand samadhi, because without the intense concentrated power that we've been developing in level 1, in a sense, you really can't go to level 2. I'm not saying that Anahat meditation is the only way to get to these higher planes. I mean, of course not. I'm just saying the intense concentrated power is what's really important, because meditation can be defined as where you put your attention, or the act of putting your attention upon something. Most people are meditating all the time on the physical plane. Now their mind is scattered, right? And they're caught up in a drama, a karmic wheel of samsara, cycles of birth and death. But those are happening all the time. Every time you make a decision to go on another journey, whatever that is, to create another story. Right? When you create another drama story in your human experience, it's okay, right? There's no like judgment or right or wrong. It's just a question of, wow, that's going to be another lifetime now. I don't mean like after bodily death. I just mean that if you were to say, you know, and it's again, there's no right or wrong. Something like, I'm going to buy a RV and travel around the country. It's okay. Like, you know, go ahead and do that if you feel inspired to. But realize that's like that's what I mean. It's another journey. It's another story. You say, I'm going to have children. Okay, great. But it's another journey. It's another story. At what point do you stop making up human stories? And a really key word that we'll look at today is make-believe. Those who are on their knees at the bottom of this picture, who are turning towards God and saying, I just want you. Like, I'm so disillusioned by what's going on down here. Like, this is 2020. I don't have to say anything more. It's a crazy time to be alive. And the question is, what are you doing with your time? Now, obviously being of service and alleviating suffering, if you're going to be here, is an important calling. But the best way to alleviate suffering, and we've talked about this, is the bodhisattva vow. It's to become self-realized and to guide others back into that, because if everybody knew the outcome, they would go for the outcome, but they don't know the outcome, so they're caught in these useless journeys or creating more stories, and the stories are filled with pain and suffering, and you know, it's horrible what's going on out there, right? It's a really tragic, apparently, you know, on the surface, tragic time to be alive, and not that it hasn't been for centuries past. So the idea of getting free of samsara, or birth and death, of cycles of suffering, is called moksha. Moksha means liberation. To be liberated is to be jivan mukta, or jivana mukti, a fully liberated soul. In Paramahansa Yogananda's translation of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, he talks about the 7 chakras, which the Rubaiyat does in very cryptic undertones. And he talks about in these few paragraphs, a few pages, about a few of these quatrains, which I won't quote and go into now. But he says in there, until I learn to unravel the karmic knots of my chakras, basically clear my chakras and clear my blocks, and be able to leave my body consciously and voluntarily at will. I couldn't be free. Until I knew how to move into samadhi, I couldn't be free, right? Because freedom is freedom, not freedom just for your body, right? Freedom for the body is not the goal, right? Because the body, especially like now, this is COVID-19 times. I hope a lot of you are staying home and being safe. So if you're kind of locked in your house, how free are you? Right? There's spiritual teachers I've known who go into prisons and they teach the prisoners how to be free. But it's not the freedom from your body. You could say it's the freedom for your mind, but not just to fantasize about, like freedom to think whatever you want, because again, we'll talk tonight about making stuff up. In deep spirituality, or in A Course in Miracles, it says God creates. Like creation is a real thing. And then ego makes stuff up. Making things up is imagination, right? You can use your imagination to make stuff up. But the spiritual journey is about reality, the journey back into truth. What is absolute truth? We know when you're down there in the bottom of this image, in the human thing, especially when you're on your knees like that, something's wrong, right? It's like the Matrix, right? We're being aware, I remember the metaphor, the analogy of the Matrix, right? Where Neo is like, there's got to be something going on here, something else happening. When you start questioning what is the absolute truth, like I said, that's not to begin, but once begun, better finish, because it can be a very challenging time to start to extract yourself from the human. I had an email from one of you today who are going through live talk, and others have mentioned this. Strange bodily sensations. And whenever I hear stuff, honestly, like nausea or pain, I recommend going to a doctor. You guys are being trained to eventually become teachers of this system. And if somebody questions you and says, I'm having all sorts of physical sensations, aches, pains, problems, go see a doctor. But when Kundalini awakens and starts moving up the chakra system and you're meditating in this way, cultivating intense energy and opening your chakras and clearing your blocks, things can get worse before they get better. And you can feel very uncomfortable in your body in a lot of ways. And as I teach about leaving your body and putting your attention more and more regularly on these higher planes, the human experience becomes a lot harder. I remember a friend, I didn't know this person long, but I remember him saying, it's challenging enough to be a human being. But being spiritually aware is so much more challenging because you still have the human challenges, but now you've got these other things to think about, right? You still have to deal with the human experience while you're doing the human thing here. But now you've got to start to focus on these higher planes. And let's say you do start having out-of-body experiences. When you come back to your body, it's rough. Your body doesn't feel so good. But in a sense, there's no other journey to take. You have to start going back to spirit eventually. It doesn't mean that that journey is easy. You go through dark nights of the soul, you get really depressed, you have, again, strange physical sensations, you don't want to function on the physical plane, all you want to do is meditate, the bliss is so intoxicating, you don't want to open your physical eyes at all, but you have to. All right, so little disclaimer in a sense of where we're going with this. If you look in the imagery, I'll be asking you to put your attention from this point on when you meditate. You still do level 1, and we're not officially in level 2 yet, because you need this introduction. Yet, you're going to be putting your attention on these higher planes. Again, I don't know, I think this class we talked about, like this, I will think it's a number 1. This is like the first plane, but I like to consider the physical plane the first plane. And then you move on to the second plane, the etheric plane. The third plane, what I'll call the lower astral plane. The fourth plane, the astral plane. Fifth plane is kind of the causal mental plane. And then beyond that, again, these are just pictures and words, right? So don't ever say like, oh, another system says this, which one is right? It's kind of like saying if you hang out around Pennsylvania, New York, what's up there, Massachusetts, Connecticut, which one is Connecticut and which one is Massachusetts? It's just human make-believe, right? It's just a one big area of land. So the human divisions and pictures are meaningless. So please understand that as we talk about these different levels and planes of reality. You could experience New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and the topography, the land is going to look a little different here and there, but it's still land. And if you keep going out west, which in my opinion, way, way out west, like Utah west, it gets more and more beautiful. Well, actually, no, there's a lot of beauty at the East Coast as well. But I've been migrating more and more west. And, so it's different, right? But it's not necessarily that there's exact clear delineations between Utah and Colorado, right? A lot of the land in those areas looks very similar. Okay, so that's my point as you're moving into these higher levels. Let's move on. All right, we've looked at this before, but it's important to understand it again to move into, or just understand it deeper to move into level 2. Vivekyati is a Sanskrit word referring to discerning. And in yogic philosophy, we have a term called neti. In the West, it's often transliterated as N-E-T-I. But the more proper transliteration to give you a better pronunciation of the Sanskrit would be N-A-Y-T-I, neti. Doesn't really matter for that word, but a lot of Sanskrit, the pronunciation does matter. So I'd encourage you guys to consider that. Vivekyati, meaning discriminating, or we don't like the word discrimination, right, because of politically correctness. So perhaps a better word is discerning, or discriminating or discerning wisdom, whatever one you like, whatever sounds most politically correct. Discerning wisdom, the ability to separate the real from the unreal, to discern real from unreal. So I'm going to give you the general teaching again. And every time I teach it, even though it's like I obviously know it, I know just putting your attention on these ideas is very valuable. So consider this part of a meditation tonight, just to meditate on this idea again and have beginner's mind. Don't think you understand or know anything as we move into level 2. Because just like you're going to take the red pill or the blue pill in the Matrix, you're going to have to let realities you think you know it go. And we live in a realm right now where time and space seem to be real. Now, time is obviously an illusion, right? Like it's 2020, unfortunately. It's 2020 right now. And then you say, okay, well, the past are the things that happened before this. The future is stuff that happened after. Meaningless human ideas, just like where does New York begin, or where does Connecticut, and where do these states begin and end? There is no beginning and end. It's human make-believe. Time is totally an illusion. It's human make-believe. Space is human illusion and total make-believe. Like right now, most of us are, I am in the United States, and it seems like my head is going up and my feet are going down. And then there's people down there in China or Australia or whatever, and what are their heads facing down and their feet are facing up? It's all relative. And it's all an illusion. Time and space are illusions, but I hope you grasp not just time being an illusion, space is an illusion. The ideas of big and small are illusions. Have you ever thought about when you're walking like in a forest trail and there's an ant, or these other creatures like the little chipmunks or squirrels or a snake? You are enormous. You are a giant compared to them. You look at the mountains and say, oh, I'm very small. But the snake looks at you and says, man, that thing is huge, and it's terrifying how big that thing is. It's going to stomp on me, right? It is a complete illusion, but here's the bigger illusion. You're not a body. So how big are you? Those ideas, big, small, up, down, in, out, are meaningless. You have to grasp that when you start thinking about out-of-body experience, because out doesn't just mean up above your body. Out could actually mean going deeply within to enter these other dimensions. So if we go back here, the picture gives you the illusion that you leave your body and you have to go up, right? Now you can go up to find the higher planes, but you can go down to find the higher planes, but they're higher. Higher and lower are meaningless concepts. The reality of these other dimensions, they are there. Just like like we have the thing called the internet. What if we call the internet the higher, wiser computer system? We put the word higher in there, right? Internet, the World Wide Web is higher than just your hard drive. Now, is the internet higher than your hard drive, right? Isn't it kind of everywhere? It's there. Now, somebody who knows nothing about it might say, no, that's not real. There's no such thing. But once you tap into it's there, you're like, oh, there is this whole thing. And it's a really good thing to be aware of. And those who are only aware of just their myopic limited computer might be like, hey, this is pretty amazing. But remember, there's something much greater. There are absolutely realities that exist that you're not aware of right now. So a little bit of humility is in order in moving into level 2. Because if you don't have beginner's mind, if you're not willing to let go of everything you think you know, then you're still bound by certain human time-space illusions. Okay, so back to Vivekyati. Therefore, you want to start to discern time and space from everything else, the one reality behind all of it. Now, yes, there are different dimensions, different planes we're going to start moving into, which is super exciting for those who are ready to go. And it's not that, I talked about when we started how many people got the email about this training and then how many people are still here now. And of course, not everybody who hears about it is moving into level 2. But the idea in A Course in Miracles is all are chosen, but few choose. Like the idea that many are chosen. There's like different things in scripture that talk about only a few are chosen, or the Jewish people being the chosen people. And A Course in Miracles, it says that everyone's chosen, but few choose. Why is it hard to choose to go to these higher levels, and why are they not accessible to you? Well, you're not putting your attention there. And why you're not putting your attention there? Because you don't value the higher levels. You still value the human. Your attention is on the human, and your goals are human-centered goals. That's okay, but realize you are so much greater than just any one human life. The only way, not the only way, but I'm just going to say that, but I don't mean to be exclusive. The only way to move beyond human is you have to put your attention somewhere else. If you are at the beach and you're looking at the ocean and you're like, wow, this is really nice. And that's, pretty imagery. But let's say you were really, I think I've had enough of the beach. Well, you'd have to turn around and face inland, right? Or let's say you were just too caught up in being inland and you're like, I don't like it. It's too hot and miserable here on land with all the humans. I'm going to go somewhere else. All right, then you can put your attention on the ocean or the sky. But the way to get there would be to put your attention there. That's how meditation works. We put our attention on something higher. But again, don't think higher just means above your body, because it can mean going inwards. But even the word in, none of the words really work. But anyway, below the line, what is the line? The line represents a division between the real and the unreal. Now, is there really such a line, just like between Connecticut and Massachusetts? No. But it's helpful to talk about it that way. But the real idea is illusions don't even exist. So you say, well, where does reality begin and where does illusion begin? Illusions never began, right? Think about explain it this way. In the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, often pronounced Advaita Vedanta, the philosophies of the Indian sage Shankaracharya, the idea is in Advaita Vedanta is non-dualistic philosophy, that only what's real is what's real. Only what's true is what's true. It's not that there's truth and illusions. Illusions don't exist. This is how A Course in Miracles begins. What is real cannot be threatened. What is unreal does not exist. Herein lies the peace of God. So what this meditation idea that we're looking at on the screen is about is putting your attention on that which is real. Therefore, you have to discern real from unreal. Below the line, we have, I'll use the cursor, but you don't really need that, relative. Right? Relative is a good way to understand that is if you're standing in a river, what makes for upstream and downstream? Right? You say, well, the flow of the water, but that's not actually the case. Where you're standing in a river, if you look to the right, if the water's flowing from my right to my left, right? To my right is upstream, to the left is downstream. But only to me, the relative observer, because I have a body and I'm standing there with my body, Everything to the right of my body is upstream, to the down of my body is left stream. And you say, oh, well, sure. So that's what makes upstream and downstream. But what if I walk 20 feet downstream to my left, and then I look to my right? What I was just insisting was downstream has now become upstream for me. And if you were 20 feet to my left, you'd be saying, no, Matthew, that's upstream. And I'd be like, no, that's downstream. Who is right? We're both wrong because we're both arguing about an illusion. If you take the human body out of the equation and just as an observer float above the whole river, there really is no upstream and downstream. There is the flow of water, but that doesn't mean anything, right? Because then you can zoom up and look at the whole earth and you say, where's upstream and downstream if you zoom out to see the whole planet? Okay, so realize what's below the line doesn't actually exist. So let's say we're driving down the highway and we see a mirage. And we start getting scared. We're like, wow, we're going like 70 miles per hour. There's water in front of us. We can't slow down quick enough. We got to start making plans, right? We got to find ways to be safe. And we come up with prayers to deal with the mirage, the impending doom of hitting this thing of water. Everything we talk about, everything we discuss about what doesn't exist is an illusion. So what else is illusory? Temporary, right? If it comes and goes, if it's not eternal, it's an illusion. If it's changing, it's an illusion. Think about your body as I'm talking. It's temporary, it's changing. It's an object of your consciousness. You observe it. But the real question, beyond just these deeper levels of reality, which we're moving into, the real important question is, who are you? Because are you an etheric body? Are you your astral body? Are you the causal body or mental body? Again, these words can have different meanings and they're not that important. But the point is, are you what you observe? And this idea on the screen says you're not what you're observing. When you observe the mirage, whether you think it's there or not, it's not you. When you observe the road in front of you, it's not you. When you observe the car in front of you, it's not you. When you observe your body that's sitting in that car driving, the body is not you. Then the sensations in your body are not you. Your emotions are not you. And your mind, especially the egoic mind, is not you. Right? So if it vibrates, if it moves, if it changes, it's not you. And think about everything we've done in Anahat meditation so far. For the most part, we focused on things that are not you. Right, descending to the hara. You're not your hara. You're not your second chakra region. We focused on the sexual energy a lot. I hope you enjoyed that, but that's not you. The pleasure you feel is not you. The energy we work with, the shakti, the prana, you might even say that's not you. Right, that's something that you can control, that you can cultivate, that you can observe. So remember, if you can observe it, it's not you. So there's two major priorities on level 2 Anahat. Number one, who are you? And then number two, start focusing on who you are. But also number two is focus on the more subtle levels of reality, not the more dense levels. And again, that's where it's going to kind of wig you out if you really keep doing this, because eventually you're like, wow, the physical plane is the most unreal thing there is. Well, I want what's real. And you start focusing on the higher, more subtle dimensions, and they're more beautiful and more glorious. But that makes the human experience just that much harder. So, you can send me emails if you need to. What else? So objects of consciousness are not you. But there are subtle levels which are also object of consciousness, like your astral body. When you're out of your physical body, you have an etheric body, you have an astral body we'll talk about today. You're not those bodies. But we're going to put our attention on those more subtle bodies. So like I said, two priorities, the more subtle levels, and also the most subtle level, which is you, which is beyond words like subtle or gross, or even the word level. But again, this stuff is very hard to talk about. Okay, so you're not an object of consciousness. You're not anything that has to do with time and space. Again, that's an illusion. I'm looking at the second column below. Unreal is not real, not you. Remember, imagination by default is not real. That's so important to drill into our heads as deep spiritual seekers. Imagination is not real. But almost everything you do in meditation or life, or honestly everything you think is real in yogic philosophy is in the realm of imagination. I'll make that point more clear as we move along. And then pain and pleasure. Right? We like we're in the physical to feel pleasure, but we know there's also pain here too. Isn't it nice to know this is not your home? This is not who you are. This is not how it has to be. Dualism, any kind of duality, including subject-object, but any level of duality is not reality. And then the next column, your body, mind, and emotions. And when I say mind, that's a very deep idea. But generally, when you think of the thoughts going on, yapping in your head in like the English language, whatever language you think in, basically that's the ego mind, what Mary Baker Eddy and Christian Science called the mortal mind. It's illusory to talk about mind that way, but everybody's in an illusion. So you have to acknowledge there's this body, there are these emotions, and there is this mind thing. But who are you? Right? And you are not any of those. There's the philosopher Voltaire. He said, first God created man, and then man created God right back. Which is kind of to say that we project human attributes onto the divine, right? It's called anthropomorphism, where we're anthropomorphizing God. And God, there is a reality that's worthy of that word. Whenever I use the word God, I'm referring to that which is above the line on the screen here. Yet it's so important to remember, no matter how spiritual you think you are, you're probably more caught in an illusion than you think. You're probably more caught up in time and space than you think. You're probably valuing time and space stuff more than you think. Most likely you're getting stressed and worried and concerned about what's happening in time and space. You're probably upset about stuff that happened in the past that doesn't even exist anymore. You're terrified of the future that doesn't even exist yet. And in the now, which is where the glory of God is found, you're scared shitless, right? So we're making stuff up left and right. If you are fully present, like fully present, you experience something so sublime and so beautiful. And that's what meditation paces us into. Okay, and then so we don't go for 3 hours tonight ideally, but whatever, I'll work to keep moving on. So below the line, there's happy and sad. In Sanskrit, tied into pleasure and pain, the term is sukh and dukh. Sukh and dukh, pleasure and pain, or just kind of happy and sad. And that's kind of inevitable, right? That really good stuff happens, you're healthy, you got money, you got a beautiful relationship, you have great things, you're happy. All right, let's be real, most people are happy when things go their way. And then when things are really not going well, you're unhappy. That's okay. My book, Peace Under All Circumstances, explains okay, when the human doesn't feel good, you're not so happy. That's okay, but can you be at peace with that? Peace is what's above the line. So the answer is yes, you can be at peace no matter what's happening below the line. And that's why on the Anahat Monastery website, onlinemonastery.com, not that we have an Anahat Monastery right now, but on onlinemonastery.com, I put the Peace Under All Circumstances teachings because they so deeply relate to these ideas. Okay, I'm going to get the AC on soon, but let's see if we can keep going. All right, so happy and sad. Ego. Ego is a very subtle idea, and actually AC is coming on. Sorry about the background noise. Ego is the idea of, it's really loud, but sorry. All right, so ego is the false sense of self. Ego is not who you are. It's a masquerading self, but it's very subtle. And the traps of ego, it's not just I'm a body. Ego can be I'm hot. This room is getting very warm. So I'm hot. But that's not who I am. That's a sensation or emotion, right? So ego could say I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm joyous, in a human sense of joy. That's still ego. And then you have all the mental levels of ego, but that goes all the way back to simply the idea of I am. Even saying in your mind, I exist, I am, that's ego as well. And we're going to talk about that as we move along today. So what's above the line? Above the line, which is reality, the one unchanging absolute reality. So I gave you that term before, Advait Vedant. Advait refers to non-dualistic, and Vedant is the end of all knowledge. And it's one of the deepest levels of Hindu thought. The idea of Vedanta is like literally translated as the end of all knowledge. And what are the Vedas pointing to? Well, they're pointing to God. They're pointing to the one absolute reality. So that's really what we're talking about, and asking you to learn to put your, and not just to learn to do it, but to put your attention on that. So that is absolute, eternal, and unchanging. Yet, what is absolute, eternal, and unchanging? Well, the yogis teach your consciousness is absolute, eternal, and unchanging. Therefore, if you meditate on pure consciousness, you cut out all of the middlemen and you go straight to source. But what's with all this Anahat stuff then? Right? Why are we meditating in sacred geometrical glyphs? And why are we doing yoga to take care of our bodies? And why are we eating healthy? And why do we do Tai Chi to cultivate and move life force energy? And why do we have mystical devotional chanting in the realm of vibration if all we have to do is meditate on consciousness? Well, the truth is, meditating only on pure consciousness can be very boring, right? It's just like, all right, great. Now there's just pure conscious awareness. But that doesn't help you to make more money. It doesn't help you to have a clean home. It doesn't help you to, consciousness doesn't motivate action. It's the place where inspiration can come in, right? So when you have a revelation from God, it comes into your conscious awareness. But consciousness itself doesn't inspire action. It's just the you who's aware that you're aware. That you is spirit. And we want to know how to put our attention there. Yet, you still want to have a healthy body. The whole idea of Anahat, remember, is fully grounded, fully open the spirit, with the fully open heart. So we're looking for success on all levels and in every aspect of our lives. So just because there is the highest, the most absolute, which is the only journey that's really not useless, right? The only true journey is to go back to God. And again, don't let those words make you think you know what that means yet if you don't know what that means yet, because journey back to God doesn't mean the body has to die. Doesn't even mean you have to leave your body the way you're thinking. So it's really good to just keep a very open mind to what does it mean to experience the divine, to go back to God. The point I just want to make here is, yes, we're going to focus on the highest, but we also have these other levels, and they're very valuable. And there is value in some sense to the human level because we're having the human experience. And one way to say this is, and you may have heard this from me before, you are a 7-chakra being, right? And the 7th chakra is representing spirit. But you, if we say you, like in all of who you are right now, you are spirit, period. Yet you have this mind, you have this emotional being, you have this human body. Those levels in Anahat are completely acknowledged, and we want to be self-actualized. We want mastery in all those categories. So we know how to focus on the highest, which is pure consciousness. But we want to understand that kind of in between, above the line and below the line, are those different levels. Above the line is what's in the light and beyond. But now we got all these levels in between human. So in the picture here, the very bottom would be 1st chakra at the human, and the very top would be 7th chakra. We're learning to put our attention only on what's at the top. While you put your attention on the highest, you're going to go through all the other levels anyway. And yet, you want to understand those levels, right? When you leave your body in an out-of-body experience, you're not necessarily in God beyond the beyond. When you go up to the astral plane, you're flying with angels. You're not necessarily in God beyond the beyond, right? So you want to understand the terrain on the journey back home. But again, the journey back home doesn't mean just after bodily death, although I think it's a good thing to know. After bodily death occurs, where are you going? And if you know how to put your attention on these higher levels, that's where you can go. Like I said, it gives you more choice. It doesn't mean you just merge back into God beyond the beyond and cease to exist as an individual. You might hang out on the astral plane for a while. But at least you know there's an astral plane and you know how to go there. Okay, so focusing on the highest is the goal. And if you only knew level 1 of Anahat, you actually wouldn't be focusing very much on the highest. We do when we do ascending, but there's more. And that's what level 2 is largely about. All right, what else is above the line that makes it worth our putting our attention there? In a subject-object relationship, the subject or the observer is what's real, and we learn to put our attention there. So what's real, true, but why would we care about what's real and true? Well, we kind of know that's important, right? Science is all about what's real and true. Yet, understanding how the physical plane works is really not that important for a mystic. Understanding how the physical plane works gives us the internet and cars and televisions and computers, and that's great. But what are those things for? In A Course in Miracles, it teaches you don't know what anything is for. Right? What is a phone for? What is a telephone for? Well, it's to call someone, so it's a communication device. But what is a communication device for? If a communication device can, like right now, I'm using the internet as a communication device to guide you back to God. That's what it's for. What else is it for? Well, it's used for lots of other things, but you might say those could be useless journeys. They might be healthy, beneficial journeys, but if they're pointing back to God, then they're extremely useful. So putting your attention above the line is what's useful. And again, why? Because we got these other words: peace, love, joy, bliss. If you know truth is pure love, wouldn't you want to put your attention on it? That's what meditation is, to put your attention on that which is worthy of your attention. Okay. Joy, oneness, non-duality, absolute bliss, consciousness, pure, free, and forever. So in the Bible, Christ is quoted as saying, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all of its righteousness, and all things are added on to you. That's the idea. Put all of your attention on God and the more subtle levels along the way, but really put your attention on the highest and you'll encounter the more subtle levels along the way. Okay, so that's that. We're not going to go through a meditation on this because I have a lot of theory to cover, but I'm going to show you. Let's do it now. One sec. All right, I'm back to the chat pod. All right, I didn't see. Somebody said we're talking about being in a river and the idea of relativity. We're both wrong. I can imagine saying that to my sister in her next squabble, right, in respects to relativity and discernment. Nice. All right, give me just a moment. I'm going to show you the Anahat website. All right, so here, when you hover over Anahat meditation, it shows meditations on higher consciousness. I would encourage you to go through this material if you haven't already. There's a 1 hour, almost 1 hour talk about all this stuff. Then there's the discernment meditation. It's a guided meditation on the topic I was just covering. Sham Dhyan is learning how to meditate just on pure consciousness. Sham means the space of pure consciousness, and Dhyan, which we'll talk about today, means meditation. So it's knowing how to meditate on pure consciousness itself. But like I said, to me, that's not enough. I've met many advanced yogis who know how to do that, but their physical lives are kind of a wreck. You know, or by default, maybe they're okay. But we in this system want to be successful on all levels. And then there's other meditations. Here's one on samadhi, just in and of itself. And then meditation for cosmic consciousness. I would highly recommend you guys devour this material. I put it up there for free. And I'd love for you to go deeper into it in that way. Okay, so that's that. And then the Peace Under All Circumstances teachings. Most of those are here as well. Not all of it yet, but a lot of it. So anyway, I'd encourage you to go through that for sure. And then we're working on the new cover of the book right now and a lot bigger promotion for that. So that's exciting. All right, let's go back to PowerPoint. Okay, so there's more teachings on the Anahat meditation website on how to meditate in these ways. Okay, moving on. In Ashtanga Yoga, it's largely, I think it's like one of the places probably first written down is in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I'll make the camera image bigger for you guys who are here live. So Ashtanga Yoga refers to the 8 limbs, that's what Ashtanga means, like the 8 limbs of yogic practice. They are not necessarily linear, but it's a lot easier to tie. It's impossible to use words and not make it sound linear. And it's perfectly fine to meditate on it in a linear way, to consider them as stages that eventually get you to the highest states of samadhi. And I'm going to cover them today because Ashtanga Yoga, in the West, you hear the idea of Ashtanga Yoga, the yogic system of Sri Pattabhi Jois, and that's like a warrior power yoga. But the body postures and the way he's doing them in that system is not really what Patanjali meant by Ashtanga Yoga. Pattabhi Jois talks about the deeper stuff, but most people who practice that are only into the body postures and the breathing. So we're going to go way beyond that tonight by focusing on the higher levels. And I'm going to explain each one relatively briefly, and we'll spend more time in samadhi talking about it. So yam is a word in Sanskrit related to control. Like if you look at the term below the camera image, pranayam. Prana is life force energy. Yam is to control that energy using the breath. And our meditation system is very highly breath centered, right? And as we control the energy in these glyphs, we are doing pranayam. There's a lot of pranayam teachings, just like there's a lot of the word asana on the screen. I'm using the cursor again. Asana refers to the body postures, largely, of the yogic system. There are hundreds, more or less, there's a whole lot of yogic postures. I'm sure you could say hundreds, but there's only one that really matters. And in pranayam, there's lots of pranayam teachings, but there's really only one thing that really matters when it comes down to it. So I'm going to give you the most, I like to think, no, not the most, but a very refined, not the most because I haven't studied every system, but let's just say a very refined version right now of Ashtanga Yoga. So we're going through these 8 limbs, and let's just cover all of them with their own respective slides. Yam, whenever I teach it, I usually just say, look, if you lead a good life, you don't really have to worry about yam and niyam. If you get on the meditation cushion, you don't have to worry about yam and niyam. But when we started the Anahat system, I told you, because there is a monastic theme here, that we talk about the precepts, the idea of moral principles related to spirituality. And eventually I think we'll look at the Buddhist precepts as well, because as leading a, quote, spiritual lifestyle, I always put that in quotes because what does that even mean, a spiritual lifestyle? But if you're spiritually aware and you're living a life, right, then you tend to want to have moral and ethical principles that guide you. But yam and niyam are more than just morals and ethics. They're ways to live your life that create a lifestyle that's conducive to spiritual growth and to meditation specifically. So hold that in mind as I review this. The idea that leading a life conducive to meditation is important. And the yogis have figured out some really good ideas. Number 1, ahimsa, non-violence by thought, word, or deed, but very much your actions. Ahimsa is to say, don't cause harm. If you're out there hurting others, right, it's going to come back to you. You can't sit peacefully in meditation when you know, man, the police are going to be knocking on the door soon, right, or the tax collector's coming, or whatever. Right? You don't want to have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And aside from moral and ethical principles, it's just very practical not to cause harm. Right? I'm not here preaching that, obviously. It's I think you guys are beyond needing to hear that. If you're this far, you know, the training, but just something to be aware of in the idea of creating a situation, a life, but specifically a place to sit meditation where you can do so, where nothing's going to distract you. So don't cause harm. That's a big teaching in yogic practice. Satya, non-deception, truthfulness, and thought, word, and deed. Because we're devotees of truth, seekers of truth, we can't lie. Only the ego would lie, right? And when you're caught up in Like there's some people on the news right now, no names mentioned, but there's like a very prominent figure on the news right now who appears to be a pathological liar. That's like the epitome of ego. And we're going for the opposite of that. So the idea is to align your mind only with truth, only to think the truth, only to speak the truth, because we're really meditating on truth. Asteya, non-stealing, non-swindling, never to desire or take away what is not ours. Again, not just a moral and ethical principle, but the idea that self, well, let me define the word self. Capital S, self, is spirit. Self is the one reality. We're all the one self, the one consciousness. Self doesn't hurt self. Self, which is truth, wouldn't lie to itself, and self wouldn't steal from itself. It is insane to think about taking something from someone else, thinking that you gain. In fact, the deeper spiritual teaching, which all of you know, is the law of giving and receiving. If you want it, give it away. Right? The idea that there's lack is a false idea. If there's anything that could be said, actually, or one major thing that could be said about the movement back into spirit, it's the getting out of lack and the return to abundance. You're not lacking anything. All needs, the whole idea that there are needs is false. You have everything you need. You have all knowledge, all wisdom, all power. Nothing is denied from you. And to steal is to affirm lack. So we teach what we are. We teach what we are. And if you are doing the thing called thief, you are teaching the idea of lack. A yogi would never do that, not just because it's morally and ethically inappropriate. It doesn't acknowledge the truth of who you really are. Right? Brahmachari, the idea, so brahmachari literally means to walk with God or to walk towards God. And it has a lot to do with sexual energy, which we've talked a lot about. Right? So the idea of learning more about and practicing brahmachari. As you know, in the system, it doesn't mean you're asexual. It just means you're conserving your sexual energy and ideally learning about those kind of teachings. For many reasons I won't go into now. Number 5, aparigraha or parigraha, the attempt not to collect or possess such things whose presence and use prevent a person from living in peace, or detachment and avoiding possession of unnecessary objects. Because you want to meditate, you don't want to have to think about, I've got 5 houses, I've got all these vehicles, I've got all these people in my life, I'm so selective on who I let into my life. And there's so many people I love and they're wonderful and I love for them in my life, but I don't have the time for it, right? Like, I am so concerned with hours of meditation and so concerned with fulfilling my mission on earth that I'm very careful of any kind of useless journey. And even though a lot of journeys or a lot of people could be so wonderful, I'm extremely selective of honestly who's kind of in the inner circle. And I'd encourage you guys to consider that. Like if you have a dog and a cat or 16 cats and you've got all these animals, you got all these plants to water, you got a whole farm, you got all these vehicles, you got all these houses, you got all these people, how much time is dedicated to God? And I know people could say, oh, it's all God. Fine, but lots of people are very caught up in the world, and it doesn't matter what they call that. It's still caught up in the world, right? So to put both eyes on God is to be very selective to what you're letting into your inner circle, right? So I have no plants, no pets, nobody lives with me. When I want to meditate for hours, I can do that. There's no distraction. So it's just a movement in that direction. And in Sanskrit, if we go back to this page, we have the term called vivek, discerning the real from the unreal. We also have a word called vairagya. Vairagya is to let go, or in Course in Miracles words would be forgive, but a more accurate term here would be let go. Let go of what's below the line. When you start putting your attention on what's above the line, what's below the line is seen as not so valuable, and really just not valuable at all. That's what a dark night of the soul essentially is. When you're really depressed because you're like, oh my God, this thing was taken away. I don't have this relationship. I don't have this money. I don't have this house. I don't have this. It seems like, oh my God, what is God doing to me? What's happening? You're really just realizing this stuff isn't as valuable as you thought. I'm not saying the body doesn't need a house and money and food. That's first chakra basics. Um, but to create this huge thing around you of homes and cars and people and things to do is a great way to stay caught up in the illusion, right? Imagine Neo in the Matrix doing a whole bunch of stuff in the Matrix. What's the point when there's all reality much deeper? So Vairagya means to let go of what's happening in the realm of time and space, and then we put our attention on that which is higher. Okay, so a parigraha is the yam, or again, yam is like a discipline or a control, a practice that says, I'm not going to collect a whole lot of stuff because that's going to end up owning me. Okay, like your things own you. Niyam, the technical definition can be some sense of like without control, but essentially it's in the same category, yam and niyam. There's just 10 principles, and it's not even worth really saying, well, why are these yam and why are these niyam? I think a yogi just follows yam and niyam, right? So sauch, or cleanliness, the purification of the body, mind system, so that that system will not be a detriment to your meditative practice. So if your body is not healthy, remember these teachings are quite a few thousand years old, way before modern hygiene. People were just downright dirty way back when compared to our standards now. And there's a lot more, though, this isn't a great time to say this during COVID 2020, but there's a lot more ill health going around, right? There's, people were not doing so great. We didn't understand a lot of the rules of hygiene. So cleanliness is basically to keep the body pure and healthy so that you can meditate. But there's a lot to be said for pure environments, or what in Sanskrit are called sattvic environments. Sattvic referring to, without explaining that whole teaching, just clean and pure, like the energy in your house, burning sage, lighting incense, burning candles, having images of saints and sages around. That's a much more pure and clean energy. Like if you ever turn on a thriller, horror movie, violent action kind of movie with guns and shooting, it's not really conducive to meditation. I'm not saying it's bad or wrong. I'm just saying what's conducive to a good meditation practice. So definitely consider sauch. Santosh, contentment, taking everything at it as it comes, and ideally remaining happy and content. The idea that I would share is peace under all circumstances. It's a practice, it's a teaching. So santosh, and the word top, below, or tapasya, is essentially what peace under all circumstances is all about. And that is a yogi teaching. It really is. The ability to observe what's happening from the place of higher consciousness and not be caught up in it, right? So how can you meditate on peace? Like you're being asked to meditate on the absolute peace of God. But how can you do that when you care so much about what's happening in the world? Right? Like, you turn on the news right now, it's horrific what's happening in 2020. And then how do you meditate on pure peace and pure bliss? How can you be joyful in the midst of something so challenging? So santosh is that practice. And to go deeper into it, I just recommend Peace Under All Circumstances teachings. Top, or tapasya, that's a really deep term. I'll read what's there, but then I'll explain it more in depth. Organized living against all odds, the actions that help remove the effect of the gross intellect, holding a thought that keeps one's mind happy moment to moment. That comes from my teacher in India, where he translated tapasya so beautifully. The way it's translated in the West is a purification through fire, burning through your blockages, clearing your sanskars, your karmic seeds, if you will, clearing the subconscious emotional content through a painful process. So often in the most basic, and I'm going to say uninformed or just unevolved level of tapasya, that's like the ascetic monks who would flog and whip themselves and starve themselves and deny themselves of pleasure. That's often how tapasya was translated. It's what Buddha did. When Buddha left his kingdom and his wife and child to go and become a monk, he practiced tapasya for about 6 years. And he didn't like it. It was like, that sucks. It didn't work anyway. It didn't bring him enlightenment. It's not that there wasn't value there. He kind of had to go through it, but that was 2,500 years ago. I'd like to think we learned something over the years. So the best teaching I could offer that's in my, my collected works are the opening the heart teachings. So if you go to our websites, wherever you browse around and find my opening the heart teachings, that's how to move through your emotional blocks. But there's ways to do it that are nowhere near as uncomfortable as what the ego will do to try to speed up the process. Okay, so you do have to clear your emotional blocks, but there are just a lot better ways to do it. And the Anahat meditation system, honestly, is going to clear your emotional blocks pretty fast. Combine that with really good hypnotherapy or interpersonal hypnotherapy, to be more specific. People who really know how to clear your blocks, facilitate a one-on-one process. You combine really deep interpersonal hypnotherapy with Anahat meditation. And yeah, to me, it is an extremely valid path. Not just a spiritual path, but a career and a way to truly help people. So I'm going to say Tapasya is very much embedded at instituteofhypnotherapy.com, where you can find the Opening the Heart teachings. They're part of our school. And that's all about clearing the emotional blocks. But the deeper teachings are in the peace under all circumstances ideas of being the observer of the purification process, simply stated. Swadhyay, swa is a word for the self or spirit, and the idea of swadhyay is just to study spirit. So it can be the self-study, contemplation about who you are, to sit in meditation and go like, who am I? Like, am I this body? Am I this heart that's beating? What happens when this thing stops beating? You're going to be right there. If you're meditating, there'll be a moment where that thing stops beating, and you'll be right there. That'll be interesting, right? What's going to happen next? Who are you? When that thing stops, when all the brain activity stops, who are you? That's Swadhyaya. Be asking that question. Contemplate who you are. But beyond just that, Swadhyaya is to study the scriptures. What did the great saints and sages say about who you are? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to try to get through the jungle on your own. Right? The jungle's really thick, and you do have to get to the other side. But to try to carve a path on your own through the jungle, it's going to be a lot of work. You'll get there after 20,000 lifetimes. You'll get there. But what if you could do it in one lifetime by following the footprints of the great saints and sages who walked before you? So that's, as we learned about, the second stage of the Buddhist ox-herding pictures, finding the tracks. It doesn't mean it's only the second stage. You can be studying the scriptures for the rest of your life. But they're always pointing back to spirit, and you want to study teachings that guide you back to God consciousness, which eventually will include the out-of-body experience, the astral projection or out-of-body experience literature, because the idea that there are these other planes on the way back to God, if you will, and I say if you will, meaning it can be an illusion to say there's something between you and God. But in the idea of the first chakra, the seventh chakra, there are levels in between. And the more you put your attention on those levels, the more you get to go there. But you have to be willing to, right? Everybody's chosen, but few choose. That's why out of the thousands of people who heard about this meditation system and this current version of it, there's only a few dozen who are actually still going through it. Many are chosen, few choose. So are you going to choose to study the subtle levels leading to God consciousness and studying what is God consciousness, or who are you really? That's what, it's part of your lifestyle as a yogi, or as not a meditator, whatever you want to call yourself. And then Ishwar Pranidhan. This is the personal relationship with God. It says here, surrender and devotion to God. But what Ishwar is referring to is the personal nature of God. A lot of what we talk about is the impersonal absolute, the infinite field of pure conscious being, the absolute bliss consciousness. Yet there is a sense of personhood in you, and a lot of the ancient philosophers, modern philosophers, mystics, saints, and sages have absolutely acknowledged the personal nature of God. In the Vaishnava movement, which many of you know as the Hare Krishna movement, they talk about Mahavadis. I think I say that, Mahavadis, something like that. Maha means great, and what is that word? Vadi. It's like Vidya, Mahavidya. It's the great illusion or the great illusionists. And the Vaishnavas say To meditate only on the impersonal absolute nature of God is the greatest, biggest illusion. Ramakrishna, the great saint, he said when he was introduced, let me tell you that story briefly. Ramakrishna was a devotee of the Divine Mother Kali. He loved God in the form of Kali. And he worshipped her and prayed to her and made love with her and mystical ecstasies and there's all sorts of this whole relationship with Kali. But then a non-dualist, a practitioner of Advaita Vedanta, his name was Totapuri, came to the Dakshineshwar monastery or ashram temple where Ramakrishna was the priest, where he lived. And he said, you know, that's not the highest. The highest is non-duality. And Ramakrishna was like, all right, teach me. And so within a very short period of time, because he was so advanced, he gets the highest non-dual realization. And he experiences his total oneness and merging into God. Beyond the beyond, no individuality, nirvikalpa samadhi, which we'll talk about today. And then he comes back to body consciousness and he says to his disciples and to Totapuri, he goes, you know, that was nice, but I would much rather be the sugar than taste the sugar. Meaning I'd rather be a devotee who's in love with God instead of just being God. And both are true. There is the idea that in Course in Miracles, you are not your own creator. That means you have a creator. You ever wonder who that is? Like, have you ever sat down number 4, Swadhyay, and said, all right, I didn't create myself. Not your body. You didn't make that either. But the body is made. You, spirit, are created. Well, who created you? I would think you'd want to know that at some point, right? That's like a really big thing. If you created something else, like a little mini-me, right? Austin Powers, little mini-me, if he was running around little mini-me for a while, and so one day he's like, where did I come from? Who am I? Who am I a reflection of? In this case, Dr. Evil. But in the deep spirituality, who are you a reflection of? Ishwar Pranidhan is to be devoted to that question and to the being that can give the answer. You can't give yourself that answer, right? You can't, your ego can't tell you who you are. You didn't create yourself, so only that which created you can tell you who you are. That's the meaning of revelation. God reveals to you, you don't reveal to God. That's, of course, the Miracles teaching. Revelation is not a two-way street. God tells you who God is. You receive the answer humbly. That's why you have to be on your knees to get into God's house. Because if you're not on your knees in total humility, then you're not ready to receive the answer. To receive the answer to who you are is to, number 1, ask. Right? Turn to God and just like, who am I? Who are you? And then meditate to know. Okay, again, this is all extremely relevant to level 2 and level 3 of Anahat meditation. All right, moving on. For the sake of those who are here live, let's do that. Asin or seat. So that's number 3 in the Ashtanga Yoga system. Asin or asanas, as you hear in the West, are all the body postures that yogis do. But remember, all those body postures were designed to be able to do that one posture on the screen, Padmasana, right? Asin, Padmasana, meaning lotus pose. So we know all about that now in Anahat meditation. When you get on the cushion and you assume the position, you've taken the seat of asin. And that's really all you need to do. You don't even have to think about yam and niyam too much, because when you're sitting on the cushion, you're not lying, you're not stealing, you're not killing, you're not misusing your sexuality. Right? You're just sitting there. It's one of the most ethical things you can do. Just sit still, and you'll stop hurting a lot of people. You won't be polluting. You won't be running around on useless journeys. Just sit still, right? In one of the Psalms, it says, be still and know that I am God. That's the whole advice. It sounds yogic. It's also highly biblical. It's Judeo-Christian, right? Be still and know that I'm God. So that's what we're doing when we sit down, and we know all about that now. Pranayama. I bought this picture so I didn't have to steal it from somebody. The practice here is called Anulom Vilom. The with and the against is what that means. It's alternate nostril breathing is what's shown in that picture. We're not going into any of that, at least not right now. I can take you through pranayama classes online. Yes, it can help you to go deeper. Just like I could take you through yoga body practices online, right? I could show you all the body postures. We could do an hour and a half yoga class, which we might do at some point. And then we could do pranayama afterwards. That is helpful, but it's not necessary. You can meditate without having to do all those body postures, and you can meditate without having to do all those breathing exercises. Again, are they helpful? Are they beneficial? Yes. They're called upaya. Upaya means skillful means. And there are lots of skillful means, lots of techniques that can enhance your meditation experience. But the deepest pranayama, I'm going to say, is called kumbhak. Kumbhak means basically holding the breath. When you have enough life force energy in your body, you barely have to breathe. This is the idea of how your body becomes a superconductor for divine energy we talked about in Meditation 12. When there's that much chi or life force in your system, you don't have to breathe very much. You can direct all of your attention inwards, away from the physical world, if you will. So I'm not going to go into it too much. It's worthy of a long discussion, but we're already about an hour and a half into the class or so. So I got to move on. But if you learn about pranayama and practice it, it'll enhance your meditations. Let me just say, learning about kumbhak pranayama, breath retention, holding the breath, controlling the life force energy, that's really going to be the deepest thing, because when you're not breathing, you're not thinking. And when you know how to direct your attention towards spirits, then, it's like the body sitting still in meditation, the breath is highly refined, barely needing to breathe, and then it's just so hard to talk about, but we'll look at that in the next slides. Then your attention can go where you want it to go. So sit still and quiet your breathing is really what it's going to come down to. Next, pratyahara, or sense withdrawal. PowerPoint actually gave these cool little images, so I was like, oh, that's neat. So you got eyes, ears, nose, tongue, taste, and touch for the body. They put lips there, I don't know. I didn't pick those. It's just PowerPoint auto-populated those. So sight, your eyes. The eye, your consciousness normally is going outward through your eyes. That's called Vyutan Vritti in Sanskrit. Vyutan Vritti is externally oriented consciousness. You're listening through your ears, smelling through your nose, all the stuff you do. But Vyutan Vritti is not the direction that you want to go in deep meditative practice. We want to go in a direction called Narod Vritti. Narod is a withdrawal back into source, and the mind will get quiet because your consciousness has been withdrawn from the external world and from your body, your sensations, your emotions, and even your mind. So pratyahara is really crucial to understand in deep meditation, because when we meditate on level 1, and now I'm going to start getting into a little bit of the difference between level 1 and level 2. Level 1 is largely about your body, right? I say focus in your hara, focus in your heart, focus in your head, focus in your arms, focus in your legs, focus in your sexual energy. And when you meditate on the geometric grids, they're largely two-dimensional, right? You have a triangle, not a tetrahedron, but a triangle. You have a 6-pointed star, not a star tetrahedron. We're focusing on level 1 on a two-dimensional, and I know your body's 3-dimensional, but relatively speaking, it's still kind of flat, right? Like especially me on the screen, on the screen right now, the screen is flat. Your body is only that much thicker, so it's really still kind of 2-dimensional. It is 3-dimensional, but the more subtle levels that we're moving into, those are multi-dimensional. It's more than just 3 dimensions. So we're going to be putting our attention on higher dimensions, on more dimensionality. Therefore, we have to learn to withdraw our attention away from the 2-3-dimensional physical plane. All right, so your eyes, which are focused outwards, you close them eventually. Like in Anahat, we can meditate with the eyes open, and I hope you understand the value of that now. Yet, when you close your eyes and turn your attention inwards, you're moving away from the external world. So we withdraw from the eyes. Hearing, we withdraw from the ears. Once you're in deep meditation, you don't have to hear what's going on in the external world. Smell, you don't have to smell what's going on out there, so withdraw from the nose. tongue, if the taste was gone on out there, but now and then you don't have to touch or feel what's going on out there. But let's say you're highly invested in out there, right? I want to smell that. I want to taste that. I want to touch that. I want to see that. Fine, but it's vitan vritti. It's externally oriented. Meditation needs to be a journey inwards. In conversations with God, the God voice says, if you don't go within, you go without. If you don't go within to your own soul, you go without God. Right? So the idea is forget about the external world in meditation, and eventually you'll have complete amnesia of it. Temporarily. The idea in samadhi is that body and mind drop away. But what does that mean? Do body and mind cease to exist in samadhi? For your awareness, yes. When you're out of your body and out of body travel, does your body cease to exist? It does for you, right? Like right now, think about a country you're not in, like Antarctica, most of you are not in. Does Antarctica exist? Well, yeah, somewhere. But it's not part of your awareness right now. It only is theoretically, because I mentioned it. If not, it's just not, it's dropped away from your awareness, right? And when you forget about it in a minute from now, right, you can be aware that, that is completely not in my awareness. What you're not aware of really can cause you to suffer. If you're not aware of the physical plane at all, now you can know there's suffering down there and come back to be of service. But for you, who's on the top of the mountain, who's transcended all that, whose head is up in the clouds, what's going on down there? During COVID times, I've been paragliding too much, but I have more and more lately as I'm figuring out ways to do it safe with calculated risk. And, I spend most of my time in a mountain or in my hammock on my house, which has 2 balconies up in the trees. I'm like 100 feet off the ground right now and 5,000 feet above most people. And then I'm paragliding way above that. One of my buddies yesterday made it to 13,000 feet here, which is really pretty damn impressive. So my point is, when we're up there, what's going on down there just doesn't matter while we're up there. But we always have to come back down again. And in the spiritual sense, we always have to come down to be of service, because while they're still suffering, you can't escape forever. You can, in A Course in Miracles, it's so obvious that atonement for you does not happen alone. In deep Buddhist practice, the Mahayana traditions, you don't ever go by yourself. Everybody goes, we're all in it together, right? Or we don't go at all. So the idea is you go, the old Russian car, you go back to God, but you are going to come back down again to be of service. There's really no way around that. But while you're starting to move into level 2, just go. And eventually you'll be led to be of service. I like to think you have two life purposes. It's really one, but you can break it down in 2 parts. Number 1, know who you really are. Your purpose is to know who you are and heal yourself. So know who you are and be healed in the process. Or my book, the Sutras on Healing and Enlightenment, those words are synonymous, healing and enlightenment. That's your purpose. Know who you are, be healed. Your other purpose is to be of service to others once you know who you are. So a yogi, a meditator, is going to prioritize him or herself. You're the highest priority right now. You don't really have to be of service to anybody right now unless that's part of your profession or you're called to, great. But when you go into deep meditation, you go into retreat, you go into seclusion. If you do a 10-day Vipassana retreat, you just sit and meditate. You do a Zen session, it's usually a 7-day experience. You're not being of service to anybody really, you're just meditating. But that's the highest form of service there can be. Even though you think, but I'm not doing anything. Not doing anything is one of the highest teachings there is. In A Course in Miracles, it teaches, I need do nothing. In the deepest Zen meditation, it's called shikantaza, or just sitting. So you have permission to take the seat of asana, to barely breathe, and to direct your attention away from the external world. And now level 2 is the movement to the more subtle levels of your being, which is really cool. We're getting to some really amazing stuff. I just have to lay the foundation. And it's more exciting than level 1. How could it not be? But it takes a lot of preparation to grasp where we're going. And again, I could spend 2 hours talking about pratyahara, so this is just an introduction. Next, dharana and dhyan. We can talk about in one slide because essentially they're not the same, but they're so subtle you can talk about in the same slide for sure. So remember, dharana is a term you've heard. It means concentration, but it's not just concentrating your mind. Dharana is to, and some more aspirated DH, I just don't do that. It's like dharana, but I'm not good with that. So it's dharana and dhyan. Dharana is concentration, but it's where you put your attention. In the movement inwards, like when you're doing level 1, you're putting your attention on the body, on the breath, and on the idea of the inhaling to your hara. But remember, there's this triangle. In level 2, we start putting our attention on the geometries more than the form. Kind of like in Chinese, I'm going to show you some pictures. In Chinese medicine, we know we have a body, but we also know we have an energy body. Essentially, what you're doing in level 2 is putting your attention on the energy body, not the physical body. But level 2 lets us put our attention on all the subtle bodies all the way back to God, or let's say all the way back to your soul. All right, because you, soul, I'll say you are soul. You as soul have a mind. You as soul have emotions. You as soul have sensations in your physical body. And you as soul have a physical body. We're going to learn to put our attention going from the more dense to the more subtle. And that's what samadhi really, the practice of samadhi is that. It's the movement from the more dense to the more subtle. Level 1 of Anahat, you've been concentrating very much on the body and the breath. Now, to start having out-of-body experiences and very profound samadhi and cosmic consciousness experiences, including just going outside looking at the stars and realizing what you're looking at, right? So you can do dharana on the night sky and just be like, wow, you are looking, I don't know if we talked about this, when you look out at the night sky, it took millions and millions of years for that light of each star to get to you. So that one star you're looking at might be 300 million years old. It's not necessarily even there anymore. And another star you're looking at is, let's say, 50 million years old. They didn't even exist at the same time for what you're seeing. When you look at the night sky, you're looking back in time. It took the light that long to get to you. But my point is, when you're looking at the sky, realize you're looking at the Milky Way galaxy. You're staring at a galaxy. You're on a planet hurling through outer space right now at something like 30,000 miles per second. You are a time traveler, space traveler right now. So dharana is where you put your attention, but it's good to know what you're putting your attention on. When you look at the stars, or if you think about what's even beyond that, beyond our galaxy, you are looking at the whole universe when you look out at the night sky. And Hubble Space Telescope imagery is right beyond the veil of what you can see with your physical eyes. Yet that's the outer journey. The inner journey is even bigger, because now we're talking about going from the physical plane. So if you understand in modern science, modern science, astrology, astronomy, not astrology, astronomy. The idea of measuring the expansion of the universe, and that the universe is speeding up and it's expanding. They know that now. It's speeding up and it's expanding. Because they say there's 96% something else called dark energy, dark matter. That's the teaching I'm alluding to right now. Dark energy, dark matter is expanding and speeding up the universe. There are, according to most modern scientific theories, other dimensions. There's 96% something else that we can't measure yet, but we know it's there. 4% is what we can measure of what we'll call the physical universe. What's the other 96%? Well, it's got to be the other stuff mystics are tapping into, because we're tapping into other stuff. Now, maybe what we tap into is only 1% of the other stuff, but my point is the astral plane, some of the other stuff is the astral plane, is bigger than the physical plane. So the question, though, is where are you putting your attention? Do you put your attention on the physical plane only, or are you learning to put your attention on the more subtle planes? Dharana is where you put your attention. And dhyan is a very similar idea. But Dhyan just has one other component to it. So let's say this is me as the observer, my hand, my left hand, and this is what I'm observing. Dharana is when I put my attention on it. But Dhyan is to start to be very intimate with it. So what's happening in Dhyan, if you meditate on a candle flame, there's you and there's the candle flame. And you're concentrating on it. So Dharana is to concentrate on the candle flame. Dhyan is to start to merge with the candle flame so that your consciousness and the candle flame are one, meaning there's no mind in between you and the candle flame. You want to get that way with Anahat meditation with these geometrical grids, because when you do descending, and I'm giving you a hint, of how to move into level 2, it's not about your hara, it's about that triangle. And then I'll give you another hint, which I already did. It's not a 2-dimensional triangle, it's a 3-dimensional tetrahedron, which actually has 4 points. 3 spheres and the lower sphere. That's a tetrahedron. That's what we meditate on as we're moving into level 2. So level 2 is to meditate on the 3-dimensional glyphs of the star tetrahedron pattern, or you could say of the patterns of the Anahat meditation system. So you are concentrating on level 1 on more of the dense human. And that's good. You don't ever stop doing that in Anahat. But we go a lot deeper as well. Because remember, Anahat is a holistic system. It's meant to keep the human really healthy and the human life really healthy, like your whole life really successful, but also to be aware of the deeper layers of your being. So Dharana is to concentrate on it. Dhyan is to merge into it. Remember, we have a word called sanyam, also in Japanese, jiriki, but sanyam is a better word now for what we're talking about. Sanyam is the combination of dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. So when you put your yogic, powerful attention on something, that's called sanyam. But now the question is, where are you putting your attention? On level 1, you only put your attention more or less on the human. Now we got the heart in level 1, so we got the emotional being and the value of the heart itself. And we have the ascending. So you are putting your attention on spirit in level 1. But it's really the more subtle levels in between human and spirit that we're going to start focusing on moving ahead, which starts leading to the out-of-body stuff, which leads to tons of other experiences that I'll be talking to you about as we move along. All right, next. So here's another picture I bought off stock photography, so I didn't have to steal it. And we'll use this idea to talk about what we're talking about. All right, there's lots of other images online about, like, here's a physical body and here's a more subtle body. So as we're doing Anahat meditation level 1, a lot of our attention is on the physical. Where's my cursor? Okay. Physical plane and physical body. And the numbers on the right are the chakra numbers. So we have number 1, physical plane, physical body. So here's her physical body. And then here is her etheric body. Now, I want you to have these terms, and also the light beings in the background are worth acknowledging. Okay, so let's talk about just physical plane. I'll tell you about the chart, and then we're going to focus largely on the etheric idea moving along for this class. So when you're doing the human thing, you're totally first chakra. So somebody type. Let me see if I can get the chat pod back. Oh, there it is. All right, I got the chat pod again. If you have questions right now or something you want to share, take a moment. I'll take a drink and let me answer this question maybe. All right, 80 degrees in here. Would you advise that we go through level 1 meditations prior to engaging level 2? That's a good question. I can answer it now. Well, don't even think of starting level 2 yet, but you're going to just kind of intuit what I'm talking about as we move along. What I usually do is I do level 1, and then I do level 2. So you go through all 12 of level 1's meditations, and then you move on to level 2. But eventually, level 1 and level 2 become one reality. But yeah, the way to do it for you guys at this stage is you do level 1, which is all 12 meditations. And once you've gone through those, however long that takes you, you can do it really fast, right? You can just breathe. Inhale, descending. Inhale, exhale, descend. Inhale, exhale, heart. Inhale, exhale, ascend. You can go through the whole meditation system in 1 minute, but that would be a mistake. So, spend like a half hour doing level 1, and then, yes, you would move on to level 2 for as long as you go, and that could be quite a while. Okay, that's a good question. Thank you. All right, I close the chat pod for now. So we have the physical plane, then we have the level just above, but again, be careful about the word above or below. With the physical plane, let me adjust the camera and you can see it's planes and bodies. All right, so etheric plane, it's the template that makes the physical plane. The physical plane doesn't emanate in etheric plane. The etheric plane emanates the physical plane. The physical plane is the byproduct. It's the effect in cause and effect, right? So the lower you are on this chart, the more unreal it is. The higher you go, the more real. So I'm pacing you into the more subtle levels, and I'm really pacing you to the highest level. Now, like I've been saying, you can put your attention on the highest level, and you'll go through all the other levels anyway. But you can stop along the way, and that's okay. So how do you get to the top of the mountain? Put both eyes on the top of the mountain and just keep walking there, right? It might be harder to go that way, but it's going to be the fastest and most direct. But you're allowed to meander. You're allowed to hang out on the etheric plane and see who's there. You're allowed to hang out on the astral plane. And the truth is, you might not want to always be in God beyond the beyond, because nothing's really happening. There's no angels and fairies and ascended masters. There's, like all the fun stuff going on is happening on these other planes. That's probably why they exist. So it's not only just to go back to your source, because once it's like, you could consider the ocean. On the surface, you got waves and you can be on your sailboat and hey, you're out having a sailboating day and that's awesome. But then you can say, well, but you could jump into the ocean if you want. Imagine if someone who's a sailor only knew how to sail. They had no idea what was below. Because again, above and below don't mean anything here. So I could say God is below. Now that sounds horrible, so we don't talk that way, but why wouldn't God be below as well? So you're hanging out on the surface, and then I say, no, we could go for a swim. You don't know how to swim, so I got to teach you how to swim. But eventually we jump in the water together. And then there's waves, and you're like, hey, this is pretty cool. Waves are amazing. I didn't know there were waves. I'm like, well, that's just the surface. That's the etheric plane. Let's go down lower. And you're like, whoa, now you're a scuba diver. Now there's fish, and you can go up, down. Paragliding is one of the few sports that you can go up, down, forward, back, left, right. You can go in all 3 dimensions. Very few sports can do that. But scuba, you can do that. You go up, down, forward, back, left, right. So now, anyway, that's not really relevant, but kind of, because we're talking about multiple dimensions now. So now you're under the water, and you're experiencing there's all these other creatures. On the picture to the left, I chose that because when you're out of your body, you can see the other beings who are there. There are fairies. There are angelic beings. There are non-physical beings. And those little beings of light in the trees, those are fairies. Now, so what are those? Remember, just as you have an etheric body, so does every insect. Take that in for a moment. I don't think anybody really talks this way very much. I live in the mountains, and there's all these crickets. I don't know what they are, honestly, cicadas or whatever they are. They're chirping at night. They're amazing. They have an etheric body, and when you're out of your body, you can see their etheric body. The forest is filled with beings of light, but not necessarily just non-physical beings. The etheric version of all of those creatures, including squirrels and chipmunks and bears and coyotes and mountain lions. That's what we got up here. Not to say chipmunks, but we got mountain lions and coyotes and bears up here in the mountains, and they have their etheric body. So if you're out of your body, you could see the etheric body of the other beings who are walking around, even while they're still physical. they still have an etheric body. Okay, so you have an etheric body. When you leave your physical body, one of the first levels you'll encounter is your etheric body. So if you saw the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, for those of you who grew up in the 80s, there's a scene in the beginning where Mugger comes out and tries to steal his money, but ends up shooting Patrick Swayze. The Mugger runs away. He runs after the Mugger, can't catch the guy, and then runs back to where Demi Moore is holding his physical body. But he's out of his body in his etheric body. That's how, so when that whole movie Ghost, that's the etheric body. The picture to the left, it's the etheric body. How do we know? It looks like the physical, but don't have to have feet. You're probably not aware of your etheric feet very much at all. It's just not necessary. The etheric body can float, right? It can fly. But if you're male, it'll look male. If you're female, it'll look female. And it would look very much like you. The thing is, you don't see it because you're looking through your eyes. So what do you can see your hands, you can see your etheric hands, you can see your etheric body, but you'd have to have an etheric mirror to actually see your face. But anybody else who saw you would recognize you right away. If I'm out of my body and we bump into each other, I'm like, oh, hey, there you are. Right? And I wouldn't know it's you very clearly. Even on the more subtle levels, we know each other. There's no strangers in God. In A Course in Miracles, it says, when you let the stranger into your reality, he or she becomes your brother and sister. Right? The stranger becomes your brother / sister. I'm not going into masculine, feminine as far as the gender or whatever of the etheric and astral body, because this whole idea of like a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body, that's complicated theology or complicated metaphysics. But simply stated, you know, here there's a woman, her physical body is female, she leaves the body, her etheric body is female. Why? Because she believes she's female. What is creating the etheric body? Your mind is creating the etheric body. But here's how it works from the top down. If you look in the charts, we have source or spirit, that's God. And then we have the divine light, the divine mind of God, or the Christ consciousness, including the Holy Spirit. And then that being creates you, as we'll call it, the soul. The mind is the activating agent of you as soul. So when you have thoughts, so the soul body or the mental body are very much the same. And when we say soul travel, when you travel out of your body as soul, you do have your mind that goes with you, but not your human, conscious, egoic mind necessarily. So like I said, it's a very subtle distinction to talk about mind and ego on this level. We won't go into that tonight. But just consider there's spirit or God, and there's you, which is also spirit, but we'll call you soul. It's not a Course in Miracles term, but I think you know what I mean. You as soul manifest through your thoughts, your astral body, then your lower astral body, which is all your pissy human emotions, and then there's your etheric body, and then there's the physical body. That's how you, as a human, came into being. God created you as spirit, and then you said, I'm going to do a human experience. And that creates thoughts of human, that creates emotions of human, that creates the etheric body. So your astral body is, you'll see here, you as soul have mind, you as mind manifest emotions, or the astral body level. The astral body vibrates at the level of emotion. That, when you get really human, then you got hurt, sadness, fear, anger. That's the lower astral body. It's a lot more dense. That's where all the emotional blocks are. That's very much your subconscious mind, by the way. That'll manifest your etheric body, which again is going to look a lot like who you think you are, and then the physical. Now, I could talk about this for hours, but at least we got a blueprint for what's going on in the more subtle levels. And as we practice Anahat meditation, we'll be focusing on the more subtle levels. And level 2, by default, will force you to do that. So I'll give you an example. Even while I'm meditating at night up in one of my balconies here in the house, and again, like I live in a tree house. I'm surrounded by trees. It's literal. I can show you a picture someday. It's like as literal as I can mean. Like I live in the trees in a mountain. I'm not on the ground. I'm on the side of a cliff, surrounded by trees. And if I got on the outside balcony, and I close my eyes, I can sense the trees are there, but all I have to do is shift my attention from the physical trees to the etheric level. Now I'm aware of the fairies, right? Now I'm aware of all the beings of light who exist on these levels. It's just a simple shifting of awareness. It's like tuning a radio dial to go from the physical to the etheric. The etheric is always there. You're just not putting your attention on it. Anahat meditation will force you to put your attention on it. And then I'll say, well, where do you live? You're actually going to be living more on the etheric plane than the physical plane. And so leaving your body is really not such a big deal because you're like, oh, I just transfer my consciousness to my etheric body. And I'll show you other pictures now and later as we move on into the out-of-body experience teachings. Okay, so I don't know how long it'll take to go through level 2 and 3. Level 2 could be taught in probably 2 classes. I think that's what'll happen. But, we're talking about the 96% something else. So I suspect, it could be a little while to explain all this and to get you going to be able to start meditating on these levels and traveling in these levels. Okay, so there's a lot to be said there. We'll get into it moving along. Next. Maybe next. All right, we're just going to keep going, even though it's very hot and comfortable, and it's been almost 2 hours. But let's just get all these teachings out there. So I'll work to get through this whole slideshow today. Obviously, there's a lot to cover with any of these topics. So a general overview, talking about samadhi. Samadhi really is our goal. The astral plane, the etheric plane, all these other dimensions are not actually the goal. Like I said, they're just waypoints along the way. And the better way to get to the higher dimensions is always the focus on the highest. But even starting to put your attention on the etheric plane or the mental levels is absolutely a movement towards the most subtle level, which is God. Because you could say in between God and we're doing it this way, God, or the physical plane kind of at the bottom, God at the top, all the levels in between. So we go back here. By putting your attention on the etheric body or the etheric plane, you're moving towards the more subtle. And samadhi is to go from the more dense to the more subtle. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The more dense to the more subtle. Now, both of these words, savakalp and nirvikalp, when you associate them with samadhi, they are samadhi. So there's savakalp samadhi and nirvikalp samadhi. And they're both glorious. And you want to know how to experience both. But then there's just savakalp and nirvikalp as words to be defined. Savakalp means with imagination, and nirvikalp means without imagination. Think about normal human experience. He doesn't like me, she doesn't like me, I hope my kids are safe, oh God, I'm gonna lose my job, oh my God, COVID-19, this is a freaking awful thing, wow, our leadership in the US, no comment. That's savakalp. All of that is with imagination, thinking, making up images in your mind, your opinions, your hopes, your dreams, your preferences, your likes, your dislikes, all that human stuff, that's savakalp. It's not savakalp samadhi, but it's with imagination. You want to understand imagination, like I said earlier, very intentionally, imagination is illusion. What you make up in your mind is totally false. And even if you said, but I have perfect and right ideas, my perceptions are very pure. Good, but they're still perceptions. Perception is illusion. Perception is not knowledge. It's not absolute reality. Perceiving God is not how you know God. You don't perceive God, you know God. So and therefore you can't perceive yourself or imagine who you are. Any image of you is not you, including your etheric body, including your astral body. Any idea in your mind is not you. You're not an idea. God's not an idea. So it takes a very specialized curriculum to help you to know God, because God is not imagination. Now, you could say God is an idea and you're an idea in the mind of God. that it just depends on how you define that word. It's very safe to say you are an idea in the mind of God. But what I'm saying here about imagination is not divine creation. I'm talking about make-believe, right? So when we use imagination in the realm of make-believe, we're in an illusion, right? You're not actually seeing the physical world right now. Light comes in through your eyes, it's flipped over, your brain has to reflip it back over. You're observing interpretations and perceptions. You don't actually see the physical world. You're not actually feeling the physical world. When you touch your desk right now, or whatever you can touch, impulses go up your nervous system, up to your brain. You're experiencing the physical world essentially in your brain. You don't actually experience the physical world, right? You're experiencing stuff going on in your brain. Who is the you who's hanging out with this brain, right? But in your brain-mind area, but really not just your brain. And I'm not going to get too into this brain-mind distinction, but let's just say brain is not mind, right? Brain is the human level, but mind is who you really, much more who you are. You as mind can make stuff up. And every human being, except the very few enlightened ones, are doing that, right? Even advanced spiritual aspirants who are not fully self-realized yet are making stuff up and believing it to be real. We're all doing that. We have to own. We're filled with make-believe. All right, but we want to go to not make-believe. Yet in Sabbath, so there's a very complex idea. The place to study this and really understand it is A Course in Miracles. The idea of wrong perceptions, right perception, but then knowledge, truth. So wrong perception is ego is complete fiction, right? Like there are aliens who are going to abduct me and rip out, and like, I'm not saying there aren't aliens, but like if I just make up a whole story right now, that's just total make-believe, right? I can just make anything up in my mind. Again, I'm not saying there aren't aliens, I'm just saying I can make anything up in my mind. But then I can say, no, I'm just sitting here in this room. It's warm, but I'm here and I'm safe. I'm talking to a group of people live. I'm creating a recording for long term. Right? Those are accurate, right perceptions. I'm not freaking out because I know what's going on and I can handle it. And then there's knowledge, the truth of what's really going on. Even though you can describe things accurately on the right perception idea of what's happening in your world, it's still not self-realization, it's just right perception. So we're going from wrong perception to right perception. But with samadhi, we're actually focusing on what's called jnana, or in the West, J-N-A-N-A, which is such a wrong way to spell it or pronounce it. It's not jnana. In Sanskrit, it's gyan. Gyan means knowledge or wisdom, knowledge of the self, knowledge of God, knowledge of truth. So what is Sabbakalt Samadhi? I have to explain it through words and through the stages we're going to talk about. So Sabbakalt is the earlier stages. It's with imagination, and it's with what's called sampragyat, which means with duality, some sense of duality. So if you observe a candle flame, there's you in the candle flame. When there's only you in the candle flame and no mind, now it's Sabbakalt. No imagination there. But again, these are very subtle, deep teachings, so I'll work to explain carefully and as exact as I can. So nirvikalp means without imagination. But while your eyes are open looking at something, it's still in the realm of Sabbakalt. But again, very deep stuff to talk about, so let's just go into some charts. At least here's your definition. With imagination, without imagination. If you don't understand the Samadhi teachings in depth, then your meditation practice is always, you might use other words in other traditions, but if you don't understand how to go on this journey, your practice is probably always based on the physical world, or like what a lot of people do in meditation, they visualize. Right? You do like guided imagery, creative visualization, hypnotic stuff, neuro-linguistic programming stuff. It's all in the realm of imagination. So, as a leader in the field of hypnotherapy, people ask me often, is hypnosis and meditation the same? Well, they're just words, but without going into that long conversation, hypnosis often involves guided imagery. Deep meditation goes beyond guided imagery. You have to be willing to go beyond fantasy to know truth. You have to be willing to go beyond your imagination to know God. And the problem with that for most people is not only do you like the physical world and all of its stuff, but you like your imagination, you like your fantasies, you like your illusions, you like your dreams, you like your future visions and hopes. You gotta let all of it go. It doesn't mean you want to have an awesome life. In fact, the more you surrender to God and put both eyes on God, everything in your life gets better. These teachings are immensely practical. Your ego can be terrified of not being in control, of not using your mind to try to visualize your future, which is kind of what it comes down to. Right? You're visualizing your past because you're so guilt-ridden about it. You're so upset about what happened, you can't let it go. And you're so caught in the future because you're so afraid of what's going to happen there. And you're just trying to make for a better future using your mind. Deep meditation says you got to stop all that. You withdraw not just from the physical world. So where are we withdrawing our consciousness to? Not just to the etheric, not just to the astral or the emotional, not just to the mental. We're going all the way back to spirit, which means you stop misusing your mind. You stop using your mind to make stuff up. But remember, when you're visualizing your future or worrying about your past, you're making stuff up. There's a much higher way to live. It's a big leap, though. In the beginning of spiritual growth, you don't realize that you're unconsciously creating your life through all your silly thoughts. And then you wise up, and then you start consciously creating your life through creating and manifesting teachings, like The Secret and that kind of stuff, Law of Attraction. Law of Attraction, using your mind to visualize what you want, is very powerful, but it is not the deepest teaching. It's actually not the secret. The secret of the secret is to stop doing that and put both eyes on God. You'd say, but who's going to run my life? God. What if you as the child of God said, I have no clue, I don't know what's going on, I don't know who I am, so how am I going to create my future if I don't know who I am or where I am or what I am? God, I'm just going to put both eyes on you. I'm giving my life to you. You will have the most gorgeous life if you do that. But nobody's willing to do that because they're too scared. And they don't have faith. They don't trust and surrender enough. So deep spirituality, trust, faith, surrender. Creating and manifesting your future using your mind, you can do it. I teach it. I'm not saying it doesn't work. But you can go beyond it. You have to be wise enough to go beyond it and free of fear. Because if you're so afraid to let go, you think there's no force that's going to run your life. You're not the one moving the planets. You're not the one creating galaxies. You're not the one doing black holes. You're not the one healing your body. You're not the one digesting food. You're not the one who makes babies. You don't do any of this. It's okay to surrender and let go and go to the highest. The lower levels will take care of themselves. Go to the highest. The lower levels take care of themselves. It won't be perfect in your idea of egoic perfection, but it'll be just fine, and it'll be better than you could have done using your ego. All right, so creating and manifesting a future using your ego mind is insane, and it leads to a future of insane thinking and suffering. When you consciously co-create with God by being one with God and realizing God, the divine mind, knows so much better how to run your life than you, then you're like, I didn't make those energy grids. I didn't do any of it. I'm just here having an experience. And I just want to know who I am and who's the creator of all this stuff. All right, so just again, put both eyes on God and you surrender and let go. That's what samadhi essentially is. Not a creating and manifesting technique to get a good life. Putting both eyes on God without your imagination and trusting everything else will take care of itself. Your life won't look the way you thought it would look, but it'll be better. Every day will be a new experience. And, again, there's no preferences or likes or dislikes because you're letting all that go. You're just like, I think it's biblical. This is the day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice in it. That's the idea. It's like, you woke up today? Wonder what's going to happen today. That's all, because you've given it something higher. I don't think you can really get samadhi. You can't really grasp samadhi or experience it if you're still trying to control the world. If you're still trying to use your mind to make it the way you want it to be, It's not samadhi. Samadhi forgets about the world. In deep samadhi, like I said, body and mind drop away. You're not in there trying to visualize your future. And God knows you're not caught up in your past. You have to let go of past and future in samadhi. So you do let go of creative visualization because you let go of imagination. It's a big leap, honestly. You know, samadhi sounds cool, but why is nobody tapping into it? You're not willing to. You're not valuing God. You're valuing the world and your mind and your emotions and what you can do with it. You take your mind and emotions and you try to make a life. That's what people do, right? You take mind and emotions and try to make a life. Samadhi says, stop it. Like literally just stop it and put both eyes on God for periods of time each day, right? For 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, eventually many hours a day. And eventually we'll talk about stages of samadhi, which are, and we'll touch upon them tonight, where you're never out of samadhi. It's always samadhi. But we have to talk about it as if you're not there now, because you know most people are not. And then you can get there. But yeah, there's stages where it's not one or the other. It's eventually just only samadhi. So we'll talk about that tonight. Okay, so Savakalp is a lower level of samadhi. When I say Savakalp samadhi, but it goes very high, and the highest stage are actually really, really wonderful. And then Nirvikalp is the highest, but even it has its own. You might say stages, but words don't really. Nirvikalp samadhi, meaning without imagination, is where the Tao Te Ching begins saying, those who speak do not know, and those who know do not speak. You cannot talk about Nirvikalp samadhi, but you can guide people to it, and you have to use words to get them there. Okay, next. Here are the stages of samadhi. The first four, Vitar, Vichar, Anand, and Asmita, those are Savakalp. So I'll say it again. Here's the word Savakalp with imagination, and Vitark, Vichar, Anand, and Asmita. Those are Savakalp with imagination. Nirvikalp is on this chart, and that is Nirvikalp without imagination. But like I said, there's unfolding of Nirvikalp. Again, there's no words. But what it goes to is what's called Kevalya Avastha. That means self alone. That's the non-dual realization where it's all one. And therefore you're in samadhi all the time. It doesn't mean the body always feels good all the time. It doesn't mean the emotions of the human aren't good all the time. But you are in samadhi all the time in Kevalya Avastha. So we can get to that. For now, we're going to talk about mostly today Vitark and Vichar to prepare you for understanding the movement into level 2. You could say level 1 of Anahat is largely Vitark. Level 2 is largely Vichar. I'll say it again, then I'll explain it. Level 1 of Anahat is Vitark. Level 2 is Vichar. Okay, I'm going to define them here briefly, and then I have slides for them, or some of them, or the two relevant ones. Yeah, let me define them now because I don't have slides for all of them. Vitark refers to form, the physical form. So in Anahat, when we meditate on the breath and the lungs and the diaphragm muscle and the hara, that's Vitark. It's samadhi when you're totally one with it. So samadhi in Anahat level 1, Vitark samadhi, Anahat level 1, you could say is fruition of level 1. All right, we've talked about fruition. And we talked about when each grid is perfectly aligned, everything is just the way the system is meant to be. When you are 100% one with that, it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned, but that's what the system does. So I'll explain Vitark, but basically when you've accomplished, when you're accomplished in Vitark meditation, I'll wait till we get to that slide. But basically just understand Vitark is level 1. Vichar is level 2. Vichar is in the realm of imagination. It's the more subtle level, and I do mean imagination very intentionally. Vichar is going to be in the realm of ideas, more subtle ideas. So, for instance, on my desk just happens to be a copy of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I said it to you, right? So you have an idea in your head of a book, the book I'm about to show you. The book is Vitark, meaning it's the physical thing. But now the idea of the book in your mind is Vichar. What's more real, the physical book or the idea of the book in your mind? The deep metaphysics we're talking about tonight actually says the idea of the book is more real than the physical book. The physical book is changing, temporary, observable. I could burn it and it would just not be here anymore. But the idea would still be there. Ideas are, so in Plato's philosophy, the philosopher Plato, he talked about the forms. The idea of the forms in, let's just say, Platonic philosophy, is the idea that ideas precede physical manifestation. And it's what the Eastern teachings are all about. The idea that ideas manifest into form. So you have an idea of a book, and you say, yeah, let's create a book. And then next thing you know, you got one of these things. But it took the idea to make the thing. The idea is more real than the thing. There is an idea in God's mind of you. And the real question is, well, who is God and who are you? And that's why the idea of ideas is really powerful, that you could say in conversation with God, God says that God is an idea and you're an idea in the mind of God. So what we're asking us to do is not just assume we know what these words mean, like idea or imagination or ego or self or soul. We have to start doing what's called swadhyay, right? It's one of the niyam. Start to contemplate what is soul, what is spirit, what are these subtle ideas, including the subtle idea of your chakras. Your chakras aren't physical, right? So what are your chakras? You're better off knowing your chakras by visualizing them, by having the idea in your mind. Remember, this body, her etheric body, is the result of an idea of who she thinks she is. And by default, to manifest a human form, you need chakras and you need acupuncture meridians. You need the energy meridians, but that's what that body is that you're looking at. It just doesn't show the chakras and the meridians. But if you look, you'll see that they're there because your mind is going to make them be there. Here's a good way to understand that. In out-of-body literature, you often hear about what's called the silver cord. And the teaching is when you leave your body, the silver cord connects your body to your subtle body. We'll just call this the subtle body for now. And there's supposedly a silver cord connecting the two. I've never seen that. Most out-of-body travelers never see that. But if you look for it, you'll find it. And the theory is because your mind will manifest it. But you don't need it. Your body won't die if you don't have a silver cord. And they talk about like, oh, if they cut your silver cord, your body will die. I don't think there is a silver cord. But if you look, or if you try to feel for it, you'll find it because your mind makes it. It's important to understand that mind is more real than matter. In fact, matter's the illusion. Mind with a capital M is real. It's totally counterintuitive to how your human mind is trained. In A Course in Miracles, it says, an untrained mind is not capable, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like, nothing can be accomplished with an untrained mind. So training your mind, what we're starting to do now in a deeper sense, is to train you to value the subtle more than the dense. The idea of the book is more real than the book. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is what this is, I'm intentionally not showing you the title for so you don't research any one book without me talking about it. But anyway, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras exist beyond physical books. Right? The sage Patanjali, wherever he is right now, whoever he is, had those ideas and he manifested them. But Patanjali still exists and his ideas still exist. ideas are more real than the physical form that becomes physical. So just again, the higher we go on the chart on this page, the closer we are to God. Meaning etheric travel, while not the goal, is closer to God. Putting your attention in the etheric plane and actually like meditating the etheric plane and realizing like, wow, I'm not in a body. You're not in a body, by the way. The body is in you. I'm not in the book. Let me saw the title, whatever. All right, well, Patanjali Yoga Darshan, backwards on the screen. This is the best version, in my opinion, of the Yoga Sutras. Patanjali Yoga Darshan by Swami Sham, in case you decide you want to read it backwards. Which actually is very interesting, because the etheric plane, by the way, is usually backwards or upside down. What's on the left on the physical plane is often on the right on the etheric, and what's below is above on the etheric, but eventually we'll talk all about that, and I'm guiding you to go into it to experience it. So it is kind of a mirror image, by the way. It's an interesting little LOL about what's happening. So anyway, let's move on. Vitark is the physical. Vichar is the mental. Let's just say mental. Vitark, physical. Vichar, mental. We're going to be focusing more on Vichar, mental, moving into level 2. Level 3, or I'm sorry, yeah, well, no, the next step. Don't think about level 3 for Anahat right now, even though it's just a level 3. Just the next step of Samadhi, which is not necessarily level 3 Anahat, although it's, well, it kind of is. Anyway, Anand just means bliss. Absolute bliss consciousness, the bliss of God. When you're meditating and you're feeling bliss, then you're going in the right direction. And when you do on a samadhi, Anand samadhi meditation, you're meditating on pure bliss. And then we'll talk about the others later. So right now, I'm just pacing you with level 2 into Vichar. All right, Vitark, meditating on form. If we were to do an external mantra, and I were to say, let's use Swami Sham's mantra, Amaram Hum, Madhuram Hum. Again, just one mantra I picked. It's not the mantra, the only mantra, just an example. Amaram Hum, Madhuram Hum. I'm saying it out loud. If I keep saying it out loud as a form of meditation, Amaram Hum, Madhuram Hum. Amaram Hum, Madhuram Hum. Over and over and over again. What I'm doing is dharana concentration on the mantra. Amaram Hum, Madhuram Hum, Amaram Hum, Madhuram Hum. If my mind goes into the past, I come back to the mantra. Mind in the future, back to the mantra. When it's oneness with the mantra, that's dhyan. When I'm meditating, excuse me, just on the mantra, meditating just on the external mantra, and there's only that, then we're practicing at the Vitark level. Right, so anything outside of me, whether it's physical, I mean, you can meditate on smells technically if you had aromatherapy or incense going, and you focus only on that smell. Nobody really does this, but if you focus only on the smell, then that would be Vitark. But again, nobody really does that. Usually the external objects of fixation for meditation are a mantra sung out loud, or song sung out loud. But the idea of samadhi is to merge with it. So candle flame, it's called tatrak, or candle gazing. And when you just look at a candle, like I'm looking at the light on the camera right now, when it's just me and that light, then it's Vitark. And that's really it. The thing is, nobody's doing that. Vitark is form, and everybody's caught up in form. But you're taking your concentrated power as a meditator, and you're putting it on something physical, basically. And if it's just that one spot, and there's nothing but that, then it's Vitark. Now, there's a lot more I could talk about Vitark for an hour easily, but I just want you to understand this in the context of Anahat meditation, and I would encourage you to study this for sure. Find the sources that teach you what is Vitark and what is Vichar. So candle flame, just the candle flame would be Vitark. And again, it's samadhi when there's only you and the candle flame, no past, no future, no mind. When it's called Savitark, then you're using your mind. When it's Nirvitark, then no mind. So really what you're working toward is Nirvitark. This is why we meditate with the eyes open. I observe it with nothing in between. No fiction. Tracy Chapman, she sang the song, "There's fiction in the space between you and reality." Every human being has that. Fiction in the space between you and reality. When it's Savitark, there's still some fiction. And again, I could talk for an hour about that. Nirvitark, no mind. Just no imagination, just you and the object of consciousness. And that's a form of samadhi, but it's still external. But we need to know how to do it. And again, that's why we meditate with eyes open in Anahat. But then when you close your eyes, you're taking the inner journey, which is also obviously very valuable. A picture of a religious figure could be used for Vitark, and that's a really good way to do it because you can develop devotion and you can get very interested. So if you put a picture of Jesus in front of you, or Krishna, or Buddha, you're not allowed to use Muhammad in Islam. So if you just meditate on a religious figure, then that becomes the whole source of your devotion. So that's more of a devotional path usually, to put your attention on a religious figure, or a saint or a sage or someone like that. Or even a fictitious being like Kuan Yin or Tara, or any god or goddess type figure, or bodhisattva, or whatever. You can put your attention on it. When there's just you and the picture of Krishna, then, and there's only that, like just you and Krishna, you and Krishna. But again, a picture on your desk or on your altar. Then it's Vitark Samadhi with the image of Krishna. But Krishna is a name for God. And the picture of Krishna is not God. Just like the bearded picture of Buddha, of Jesus, right? Jesus was not a white guy with long hair. Okay, in case you didn't know. He wasn't that light-skinned, and most likely he didn't have long hair, according to what we know about the Hebrew culture and what Paul wrote in the Bible. So the picture of Jesus is not Jesus. It's not Christ. But it's a good way to get there, right? Yeah, Christians can go there by meditating on Jesus. Hare Krishnas go there by meditating on Krishna. Buddhists can go there by meditating on Buddha. And that type of meditation is called Vitark. Now, how do we do that in Anahat? The body itself in Anahat is largely, let's go back to an image, all of that in Anahat level 1 is Vitark. Breathe into your hara, breathe into your heart, focus on your third eye, kind of like, the physical level of it. Focus on your sexual energy. I'm not saying don't do it. Level 1 has its place, just like meditating in the picture of Krishna. If you're a Hare Krishna, absolutely has its place. If you're a Christian, you meditate on a picture of Christ. Right? That's one way to do it. It's not the final goal. It's an upaya. It's a skillful means. While you're doing level 1 Anahat, you're doing something extremely valuable, and I don't have to sell you all the value of that now, but I do want you to remember, that's extremely valuable. Don't let that go. Level 1 is still very, very, very valuable for all the reasons we talked about. I see a hand raised. Give me just a moment, and I'll come back to that. On my screen, it covers up something. I'll come back to you in just a moment. So level 1 is the Vitark level, where we've been meditating largely on the physical form. But you can't deny, you also have these ideas of these energy grids. Now we're going to start to meditate more on the idea of the energy grid. That's here. All right, let's go to somebody raise their hand. I can open the chat pod on my side. Okay, if you have any questions or if ever raised their hand, feel free to take a moment while I take a drink. We'll do official question answer at the end, but if there is something relevant now, I saw a hand pop up. Okay, all right. Well, only raise your hand if you really want my attention, or you're just playing with buttons. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so when we're on the Vitark level, we're on the physical body level, and that's pretty much Anahat meditation 1. For it to be Vitark Samadhi, You can't miss a beat. Every time you breathe and count, you're with your breath, you're with your body, you're with that area of your body, then it's Vitark Samadhi. It's Vitark as a practice. It's Vitark Samadhi when there's only that. It's just you sitting there with your body, which is so much more mystical than you might realize. Because the day that it clicks and you're like, whoa, I can only do it by showing you the facial expression. When you're just sitting there and you're like, wow. And there's no duality between you, your body, and the whole universe, it's really an amazing experience. Most people have not had that. Honestly, it took me 20 years of meditating before that started happening, where it's just like, wow. There's no words for it. It's a form of samadhi. But you're fully here. But there's just no mind. And Anahat meditation level 1, Anahat level 1 will get you there on the Vitark level. It has to. There's no way around it. If you keep practicing it, you will eventually experience Vitark Samadhi on the physical level. But the Anahat system is pacingly leading you automatically into the more subtle levels, because you can't deny when you inhale to your hara, it's not just about your hara, it's about this movement. And that movement is a geometrical form existing on more subtle levels. The grids that we've been talking about the whole time are not only two-dimensional, and they do exist. And they exist on the etheric plane. So now we're going to put our attention there. Vichar. When we practice Vichar in other forms, we can understand, or if you understand Vichar in other forms, you can understand it in Anahat. So, if I'm doing mantra out loud, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, singing the Hare Krishna mantra over and over and over again. And that's what the Ishkan movement, the Hare Krishnas, Vaishnavas, that's what they do. Chant Hare Krishna out loud over and over. Sing it and love it and focus on it. But now, after you did your mantra out loud, you eventually start doing it in your mind, right? And you can close your eyes, not now, whatever you want to do, but in Vichar, usually you close your eyes and you stop using your mouth to chant out loud. And now, I can't do it, obviously, and you can't hear it, but right in my mind, I'm going, what is the Amram? Amram hum, Madhuram hum. Amram hum, Madhuram hum. But I'm thinking it instead of speaking it. Speaking it is Vitark. Thinking it is Vichar. When I'm totally one with the mantra internally, there's only the mantra, no other thoughts, just me, the observer, because you're not the mind, you're the observer. But when the observer and the mantra have become one, that's Vichar Samadhi. So Vichar are subtle ideas, mental ideas. Another example is the candle flame. When you have your eyes open meditating on the candle, then that's Vitark. But when you close your eyes and visualize the candle, the visualization is Vichar. When there's only the image of a candle in your mind and nothing else in your mind for hours, you're like, that's boring, but it's not. When there's only the one idea in your mind, it'll lead to so much peace and so much bliss and so much joy. You'll be like, wow, I had no idea. Because you are peace, bliss, and joy. But all of your energy is Vichar. I'm sorry, what's the word? Vitan. Vitan means that outward-oriented consciousness. Your mind is so scattered, you're not even aware of how much love is inside of you, because it's just all diffused and dispersed and caught up in useless journeys. When all that energy comes back into one idea, then it's incredible bliss. And that leads us into a non-samadhi. But to get there, we meditate on the more subtle ideas. Now, the religious figure, so you have a picture of Jesus, but then you close your eyes and you visualize a picture of Jesus, and you keep your practice going. So let's say you're doing, in Sanskrit, it's japa, mala, your japa beads, the rosary. in Christianity, you got your rosary beads, and inside you're going, I love you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. And that's all you're doing. But eventually you'll stop the rosary. You'll stop moving your hand. You'll only be thinking in your mind like this. I love you. 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 I want only you. I want only you. Take me to God. I want only you. When that's all you're doing. Just picture of Jesus, and all you're thinking is just Christ, Christ, Christ. You said you're the way to God. Okay, Christ, Christ, Christ. That's what Christianity is. Christianity is a bhakti or devotional religion. It's about loving Jesus and letting him be your way back to God. Right? He's your savior in Christianity, and the path works. Right? It's just not the only way there, but it's a very effective way there if you're Christian. So again, Anahat meditation will not negate any good religion. It couldn't. Truth can't negate truth. And the deepest truths of religion are true. So when you're going, just focusing on just Jesus, it's not the guy who lived whatever we know of him 2,000 years ago. It's not the picture you think you see of him now by modern artists. But while you're focusing on the inner picture of Jesus and thinking whatever thoughts you think, but eventually just only like love. Jesus is love, love, love. If God is love and Jesus is love and I am love, right? And eventually it's just love, 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 love. And then you start tapping into the bliss and the peace of God. And you're like, oh, that's what God is. Not the word love, the experience of love. God is love. And the more you concentrate inside on something, the more you'll experience love. As long as, there's faster ways to go there, right? Obviously, meditating on Krishna, who you can love, is going to get you to love quicker. But anyway, any path will get there. So in Anahat, we can meditate now in the subtle energetic geometries, meridians, and or chakras. Because while you're focusing your heart chakra, so let's talk Anahat for a moment. Your heart is Anahat. And you can meditate on your physical heart, that pump, muscular pump, beating in your chest, pumping all that blood. It's actually kind of creepy if you do it, but you should do it. You should get intimate with what's there. Like really don't have some image between you and your physical heart. Just close your eyes and meditate on ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. And like, holy shit, that's freaking weird. Like that thing's right there. And if it stopped beating, wow. Like, do that. I hope you do that sometime. Most human beings don't do it. They're way too scared to be that intimate with the corpse. Their body is, So meditate on your physical heart. But now we got this idea of Anahat, or your emotional heart, or your heart chakra. Now when you meditate on your heart chakra, you can visualize the six-pointed star there. That idea of the heart chakra, and it's 12 petals, it's green. If you visualize the heart chakra, now you're meditating on the vichara level, on the subtle level. So it's almost 3 hours to teach you one simple idea. Don't meditate on form, start meditating on form, but eventually start meditating on subtle ideas, geometries, meridians, chakras. So when you go outside and meditate at night, which I hope you'll do, and you hear the animals, you hear the crickets, close your eyes and visualize the etheric form of the crickets. Trees have etheric forms. At night or whenever, but it's nice. At night, I'll go and sit out amongst all the trees up here, and I'll sense them around me. They're alive. They're living beings. They're amazing. Here's a real whopper for deep spirituality. In Judaism, God has many names. Every religion, God has many names, but the name refers to an aspect of spirit. El Shaddai, El is a name of God, or Al, but it's the pronunciation, El Shaddai is God or Lord of the mountains. And you can meditate not just on like the etheric body of the trees and the etheric form of the creatures and open to what's happening etherically. El Shaddai is meditating on the etheric form, like the macrocosmic form of the mountains. And you sense the spirit of the mountains. And then you wonder why yogis live on top of mountains. It is a whole nother realm of being to meditate and live in the mountains all the time. And that's El Shaddai. So you are transferring your consciousness from the physical to the more subtle. And as I've been doing level 2 for the past few weeks and during our break, I've been meditating on level 2. And it's not easy. It's very challenging. It has all sorts of challenges that go with it. It's been a pretty hard few weeks, actually, for me. And like today, I felt myself coming out of like, whoa, okay. So I'm warning you, you start putting your attention on these subtle levels, it's going to change your whole world. You're going to open up to the idea that when you sleep in bed at night, you're not alone. There are non-physical beings. And when you start having the veils drop away and you start seeing through your third eye, the etheric plane, now I'm encouraging you to visualize it. I'm encouraging you to visualize chakras and visualize the geometries and visualize the three-dimensional geometries. But remember, imagination is not reality. There is an etheric plane, but it's not just what you visualize in your head, but the way to get there is to start putting your attention on the more subtle. I'm not saying when you visualize a spirit guide in your bedroom, that the spirit guide is your visualization. Like if a person walks into your bedroom, you didn't visualize them there, they're actually there. You can imagine them coming into your bedroom, and that might attract them into your bedroom, all right, because you're focusing on it. I'm asking you to focus on levels that actually exist beyond your imagination. But your imagination is the way to get there. Just like if you want to go to Greece, start visualizing Greece. That's a way to make that happen. If you want to start tapping to the non-physical beings who exist, and there are there, you have to start thinking about them. The way to start having out-of-body experiences, one way, is read books about it. The imagery that the books will give you is not an out-of-body experience, but you'll start having out-of-body experiences by visualizing out-of-body experiences. You'll start having the veils to the subtle levels drop away. It was a 3-hour class. So if you're still here, I'm giving you such beautiful gifts, but it takes work, it takes effort. So when you learn to let the veils of body drop away and you're looking at the etheric plane, and then your etheric body is there, and then you transfer your consciousness into your etheric body and then fly away from your physical body, that's real. It's not imagination, but you'll get there by meditating on that level, and your mind, your mental level, like all that internal mental stuff, that's where you want to start focusing. But it's not just in your head. That's craziness. You're not only in your head. You have to start taking your consciousness and you move it from the physical to the etheric. That takes a lot of training. But like A Course in Miracles says, nothing can be accomplished with an untrained mind. Your mind was so trained to be caught up in the physical. It's a very specialized curriculum, and you barely ever hear about it, to learn how to meditate on the more subtle. And we're starting with the etheric, which is level 2 of Anahat, basically. Let me finish what's here with some pictures, and then we're about done. So I just wanted to give you imagery when you meditate to realize when you move into level 2, you're not only, camera got blurry, huh? I didn't know when that happened. Let me fix that real quick. Okay, so when you focus on level 2, on the etheric plane, now you get to focus on the grids, the chakras, the geometries, the etheric body. You do have a physical body, that's your first chakra level. So here, first chakra is when we focus on the physical body. Second chakra is when we focus on the etheric. So like I said, there's many levels back to God, the 7 chakras. And eventually, we're going to focus only on God, but not only that, because you got these other levels and you take care of them. And there's a reason why you're having that. So here, second chakra is like level 2 Anahat. We're focusing on this. You're visualizing your etheric body. You're visualizing chakras. You're visualizing meridians. You're visualizing the grids. The next 2 classes, more or less, we'll see, are going to teach you how to do that. But you already know the 12 patterns, but you're doing them largely physically now. When level 2 is revealed to me, it was like, oh, wow, like, wow, wow. It's not physical. It's etheric. It's energetic. And level 2 is to put your attention on that. Here's some more pictures. Whatever, I just tried to find stuff to give you a sense of, like here would be the physical below the line, here would be the etheric above the line. But literally like floating, and again, like I have this great sky chair, it's like a hammock, it hangs from my my lower balcony here, and it's probably 50 feet off the ground. Like literally, there's a deck below, but below that is like 50 feet to the ground, and there's like a whole cliff. It's like 500 feet down or something. 200 or 300 feet down. I'm like really high up all the time. Like, even our skyscraper where we had our Anahat education group in Tampa Bay was at the 34th floor of a skyscraper. I like being up high, so just transcend all the human silliness. So anyway, this picture is meant to represent floating above all the human stuff. You can come back down and be of service or enjoy the human experience. You can have fun with your body and other people's bodies if you want to, but yeah, there's just a lot more going on above the line. Okay, so anyway, that's for that. And then just another image, not a great image. The alignments of this are totally off, but you know, it kind of speaks to it. So the idea of, this is often called the Merkaba field, the three-dimensional six-pointed star, which is a star tetrahedron. There are very specific anatomical points, and this, again, this isn't aligned with those. But here, whoops, you have two spheres for the top of the ascending triangle, but when it's 3 dimensions, you need to kind of consider where the other sphere is at the top of this tetrahedron, and then it goes down to a sphere at the bottom. Level 2, essentially, you're just meditating on the lines of force, but you're visualizing them more than the physical. So in level 1, you guys are saying, how do I visualize it? And I'm like, don't. In level 1, you don't visualize it. You feel it with your body. Level 2, you visualize it. So a lot of you are doing level 2 more than you might realize because you can't not. Like I said, Anahat meditation paces and leads you into level 2, whether you know about it or not. And you're already doing it to quite a good degree, but when you practice level 2, it's all you're doing. I saw something in the chat pod, I'm almost done. This is from the cover of Manly P. Hall's book, The Ancient, what is the book called? Man, I forget the title of the book right now. Maybe it'll come back to me. But anyway, I chose the image for a bunch of reasons. It deals with ancient alchemical teachings. Here, the right side of this person, not our right, but his right, is masculine. His left is feminine. Remember, the 6-pointed star is the philosopher's stone. It's the integration of male and female. Here you have a phoenix imagery and fire and water. But then the line, above and below. This is all based on the golden ratio, by the way. This is the divine proportion, the way the upper and lower are divided. But below the line is human. And we're taking all those geometries, bringing them back up to spirit. We're going up the ascending triangle, it's here, up through the cosmos, back into God consciousness, into the angelic realms, into God beyond the beyond, and all the higher levels of light. And then you'll see here, God's name is, Hebrew is written from right to left. Yod, He, Wah, He. And remember, if you stack that vertically, it looks like a human being. So the alchemists know about this stuff. We've talked about that before. But now, essentially, what I'm doing is helping you to get above the line. This is a great imagery from, I believe it's the Rosicrucian tradition. Of course, God is not the bearded man, white guy, never trust whitey, bearded man, bearded white guy. But sorry, but I can say it because this body is whatever. So descending and ascending. Below is the physical, you could say, and above is the spiritual. But this image has a lot of profound symbolism. This snake swallowing its own tail is called the Ouroboros. It's the idea of infinity. Basically that, it's the empty circle, but it has deeper explanations when you see it as the Ouroboros. Then you have the term here, macrocosmic, or micropropos, I don't know how to say that word. And then there's the microcosmic, or microprospos, or however you say that. And then you see here, a little bit of like the descending triangle, and a little bit of the ascending. But the idea is, as above, so below. So you got a brain, but you have a mind. You have a physical body, but you have an astral body. You have body, but you have soul. So as above, so below is what this is showing us. And at the very center here, you have, I don't know if I use the right word, but I see the very center with this cross as Anahat chakra. And the idea, of course, of the 6-pointed star, microcosmically as you, macrocosmically is God, and you follow Om home. You follow the ascending triangle home. So really it's all about the ascending triangle to know God, and that which is at the very top of the ascending triangle. So just imagery, but hopefully it helps you to get a sense of what we're doing. I think I just wanted to close with this one, to have this last slide here to encourage you on level 2. You do level 1, and then once you really learn and understand level 2, which is going to be like the next 2 weeks, then you're going to start focusing on these more subtle levels. Level 3, I'll start teaching about out-of-body travel, and we'll get more into the higher levels of samadhi, Anand samadhi, Asmita samadhi, and then just the very deep asam pragat levels of samadhi, which are beyond the words levels. All right, I think we did it. Huh. That was 3 hours of rough. Okay, I'm gonna go back to full screen. All right, thank you, Judy. Sorry, I one meant to say names. The Secret Teaching of All Ages. That's Manly P. Hall's work, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. All right, so super warm room, let's check. So question answer, class is officially done. I said what I wanted to prepare you for level 2. I'll stay as long as you want for Q&A or just discussion, and then I'll see everybody next week. The new link is on the website, and I sent everybody an email today about it. So yeah, to see you next week, and we'll start with the official initiation level 2. It's pretty much meditations 1 to 6, but talked about on the more subtle levels. The next time, ideally if we make it to there, then we'll focus on meditation 7 to 12, and essentially that's level 2. And you're pretty much knowing how to do it, so it doesn't take more than probably 2 weeks to teach you how to move into it. And then level 3 in about 3 weeks, if we can get through all that. Then we start with level 3. That'll probably be a few classes, but we're more than halfway done for sure with all these teachings. Okay, so yeah, the Manly P. Hall book is called The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Thank you. I got a copy upstairs. I just haven't looked at the title in a long time. Somebody said, the silver cord, isn't that like quantum physics? No, we would affect that which we imagine. Well, yes. Okay, yeah, I got you. Want a chord and we can see a chord. Yeah, quantum physics, which a lot of us New Agey people, we like to say that Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is that the idea of so quantum physics, like real hardcore scientists wouldn't necessarily say that, but we in the pseudoscience fields who are more metaphysical, yeah, then we like to make that leap, that the uncertainty principle says if you look for it, you're going to find it. If you think an atom or a subatomic, if you think a subatomic particle is a wave, it is. If you think it's a particle, it's a particle. What is it? It's what you think it is. Yeah, so the silver cord, I don't believe is actually part of your astral, your energetic anatomy, but if you look for your astral wings, so the wings are a good example. When you get out of your body, you don't have wings, nor do you need to have arms and legs. But if you want to have arms, they're there. If you want to use your arms to fly, you can put them in front of you, you can flap, and you'll have arms for flapping or flying or touching things, moving things, but not necessarily physical things, but you can have arms, but you don't need to have arms. And same with feet, same with the body, same with wings, and technically same with the silver cord, yeah. Your astral body and your etheric body really aren't real either. Your physical body's not real, your etheric body's not real, your astral body's not real. What are they? Manifestations of your mind. Yes, metaphysics, deep metaphysics teaches your body is a manifestation of your mind. In A Course in Miracles, it teaches God did not create your body, and God did not create the world that you see as a physical world. Most people are not willing to admit that, but I'm just telling you what those teachings say for sure. All right, thank you. Next question. Can you project from your body while in lotus position? I can't. I'll be honest, I can't do it. Or perhaps better to be prone. Yeah, supine. Prone is when you're face down. Supine is when you're lying on your back face up. So even if I'm wrong about those words, I can astral project lying in my back face up. I've never projected, I don't think, in a prone position lying down. And I've never projected from a lotus position. I'm way too aware of my body in lotus position. I can go into deep samadhi in lotus by like a legitimate out-of-body experience. where I'm transitioning my consciousness into my etheric or astral body, or into soul travel. So those are 3 levels we'll talk about later: etheric travel, astral travel, soul travel. They're different than samadhi, because when you're out of your body, it's not necessarily samadhi at all. So when I'm doing an astral projection, yeah, my body needs to be asleep. Like literally, we call it body asleep, mind awake. I can't put my body into body asleep, mind awake when I'm sitting up with the spine straight. So yeah, I can project from, I don't know anybody who can. I've never read any literature on anybody who can. I'm sure the greatest saints have done it, but no, I need to put my body lying down to do it. So I'll teach you how to do it, and there's a whole, it's kind of like there's probably 2 or 3, you might call them secret, I don't like that word, but secret Anahat meditations. And one is the way to use the geometries for out-of-body travel. And we do that lying down. So thank you, it's a good question. Awesome, thank you to those who said that. Thank you. Certainly worth the 3 hours with portable AC unit. It is so hot in California right now, and yeah, sorry for the background noise, but I couldn't do without it. All right, yeah, the word is supine. Gotcha. You should know you're a nurse. All right, good. Any last questions you're sharing before I wrap it up for today? And I go get a nice cold drink. It wasn't too bad when we started on a hot meditation a few months ago, but now at the peak of summer, holy mama, I didn't know this house was going to be so warm. All right, somebody said thanks much. I've been with you from the beginning, but didn't get your latest email about tonight's class. May have missed the sign up. Stay cool, thanks. Yeah, we had to change the meeting room today, that link, and I'm not sure if I got my email. I did send it to everybody who's officially signed up on the website, so check your spam box or your junk mail. And I sent it from my, I can't say it out loud, and a YouTube recording. But yeah, check your spam or your junk box, and you should have an email from me. Yeah, it comes from my personal business hypnotherapy school email. Great. Someone said, I've seen fairies, and I don't know that word. You define that word for me. Menehune. Maybe it's a misspelling. It don't look like it. Menhune? I don't know what that is. I've seen fairies and menhune and some other beings. This has happened when I'm in a super high vibration while on retreat. They pop into my vision. Yeah, they do. I'm looking forward to seeing what's possible with a lot more intention in this practice. Yeah, so there's 2 ways I've seen these fairy kind of beings as well. One is out of the body. They're just there. You'll see the etheric forms, whether they have a physical form or not. There's definitely etheric beings running around all over the place, and they're in waterfalls and rocks. They're very much in nature, like the sprites or whatever you call them. But they're there. They also live, my experience, it sounds so new agey, but I've just experienced this. I've found that they live in crystals. So there was one day that I was holding my friend's crystal in deep meditation, and I swear to God, this little being of light ran out of the crystal, ran up my arm, and was right there in my forehead, in my third eye. And I'm like, hello. The little being's like kind of like a feminine form. She's like, hello. I'm like, how are you? How are you? She's like, I'm good, but I'm in this crystal with all these other uncomfortable energies, because you know, like crystals supposedly absorb negative energy. So this like little fairy was like, yeah, I live in the crystal with all the negative energy. That's just an experience I had in very deep meditation while holding a crystal. I'm not saying anything more than just what I experienced. But yeah, I totally agree that these beings are there. It's a Hawaiian term, a Hawaiian leprechaun. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, there's a reason for this stuff. But even though you might say it's mythology or fiction, there's always some truth to fiction, right? Even if you study the New Testament, which is the teaching, the time of Jesus, the Gospels, the epistles, the writings of St. Paul, historically, that stuff doesn't hold up much at all. You know, if you study that as a religious scholar, there's problems with it. But who is this Jesus person, right? And there's got to be some truth, right? Because I understand atheism about Christianity. I'm a religious scholar. I get that. But my heart and my connection with Christ, I also get, right? And I do get what it means to be Christian, even if there's problems with the historicity or the mythology around Christianity. You know, again, you can pick that stuff apart pretty easy as a religious scholar. But those who are of faith understand, okay, even if it contradicts itself, it's still talking about someone who's worth getting to know. So same thing with books about fairies. They're not necessarily about real history, but they're pointing to something that's there beyond the story. So thank you. Quick question, maybe long answer. Are you saying that if we practice pranayama with focus to sacred geometry in the Anahat Center, it's possible to experience out of body? Yes, yes. Like I said, probably not a short answer. So when you're in deep meditation and we're practicing level 2, and you're practicing kumbhak pranayama, where you're barely breathing and you're holding the breath and you're transferring your consciousness to the etheric grids, you're not going to leave your body while in lotus pose because you're holding your breath. You're still way too aware of your physical body. The out-of-body experiences will start to happen when you go to sleep at night. Not as dreams, not as lucid dreams, but I'll talk about that stuff. When I get to out-of-body travel, I'll tell you the place of dreams and lucid dreams. But the real out-of-body experiences will happen when your body's asleep. So we prepare in meditation for out-of-body experiences. But you won't, at least if you do, let me know. But you probably will not have an out-of-body experience while practicing Anahat meditation. Even when I teach you how to do it lying down for the out-of-body experiences, you won't project while you're practicing. It's going to be after you fall asleep, and then there's teachings. I'll teach you. I mean, it's not pleasant. It's, you know, it ruins your sleep cycles. But if you can get up at 3 in the morning and you do what I teach you to do, you'll start having out-of-body experiences most likely. But you're also having to wake up at 3 in the morning, and when you leave your body and come back, you're a mess for the next day. And that's part of why Anahat meditation developed for me, was teaching me how to get back in my body so I could be a functioning human being, because the out-of-body stuff at night happens in the middle of the night. And when you come back to your body, you're just so wigged out that it's very hard to function. So the answer would be yes, but it's pretty complex. And I would say when we get to level 3 for Anahat, and I start teaching you guys out-of-body travel in much more advanced ways, yeah, like I keep giving you warnings for each stage, it makes your human experience harder the higher you go. And the more you leave your body, yeah, it's not necessarily pleasant on the human level. The out-of-body stuff is amazing, but coming back, it gets harder and harder. Anyway, I've also woken up at night because little flying object was flying over my body. It was vibrating, buzzing. Yeah, sure. Again, when the veils start dropping away, your third eye opens and you're leaving your body, you'll encounter all sorts of stuff. And you won't necessarily understand it all because they're just there's so much, but it's there. And yeah, that kind of stuff definitely shows that your third eye is opening and you're leaving the physical a little bit. You don't have to be that far out to start to sense what's there. And when your third eye opens and you can see the etheric plane for real, like while you're still in your body, it's fascinating. Like, how do you see without your physical eyes? But you do. In fact, your physical eyes don't see. Spirit is what sees. And you can see the etheric plane. I promise you it's not visualization, but we use visualization and other techniques to get there. Awesome. What readings do you suggest for out-of-body? Robert Monroe's works for sure. His 3 books, Journeys Out of the Body, Far Journeys, and Ultimate Journey. Those are the 3 titles, Journeys Out of the Body, Far Journeys, and Ultimate Journeys. I've astral projected a lot, but Robert Monroe projected a lot. And the stories are just fascinating. I believe he gives you some techniques. His whole thing, the Monroe Institute of Applied Sciences, you follow their curriculum of their out-of-body stuff, their gateway program, and other stuff they designed, you'll start having out-of-body experiences. Like, they're kind of the masters of teaching how to do it. I teach it in a different way, but Robert Monroe, he went to the highest levels. If you read his book, Ultimate Journeys, you're like, oh, wow, he actually not just left his body, but he did go back to source. You know, he knew what it was like to go to the very highest. But he wasn't an advanced mystic. So anyway, his story is fascinating. Other books, The Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvian Muldoon. The Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvian Muldoon, co-authored or just helped Harewood Carrington helped write that book. William Buhlman's books, B-U-H-L-M-A-N, William Buhlman. What did he write? Adventures Out of the Body, something like that. But his stuff is good. I would do those 3 authors, William Buhlman, Sylvian Muldoon, and Robert Monroe. And you do that, read that stuff, practice that stuff. If it's the right time in your life, and then I'll give you a lot of techniques, a lot of tips, you guys start having the experience. But only if it's the right time in your life and in your spiritual growth. Not everybody, no matter how evolved you are, is at a good stage in their life to have out-of-body experiences. So no matter how hard you try, it might not happen. But they are real, it does happen, and keep working towards it. If you want to, you should keep working towards it for sure. Looking forward to being a mess. All right, good. I hope you're financially secure. Yeah, it sounds nice, but when you have to hold a job, it can be really challenging. All right, Sylvian is, yeah, Sylvian. I think that'll get you there. Sylvian Muldoon, Muldhun, something like that. His main book is The Projection of the Astral Body. It might be his only book, because I think he died kind of young. I travel a lot while sleeping. Is there a difference between interdimensional travel and out-of-body travel? Well, I don't know what you mean by interdimensional travel, but I would say no. But if somebody defined interdimensional travel as lucid dreaming or visualization work or dreams, or visualization, guided imagery, then no. Out-of-body travel is very real, and you do go to other dimensions, and there are multiple dimensions, and they all occupy the same space, and you don't necessarily go up to them, you go into them. like you can't describe it with physical words, but I go into the etheric plane. You can go through your third eye point into the etheric plane, and that is interdimensional. It's inside of the physical dimension. It surrounds the physical, but it's within the physical. It permeates the physical. So how to get there is not necessarily just floating up out of your body. You can float up out of your body and still be looking at the physical plane. But you can float up out of your body and look at the etheric plane. You just have to know how to do it. Great, thank you. I've walked through walls and seen some pretty incredible places. Yeah, me too. And when you go through a wall, you'll see the atomical structure of the wall. And it's fascinating because you get to see the inside of physical. And physical is absolutely an illusion when you look at it from the inside. On the outside, it seems so solid, but I study quantum physics, and it's not metaphysics or pseudoscience. The space between the core of the atom and the electron is something like, it's like enormous. It's mostly empty space. And when you're out of your body and you move through a wall, you'll see all the vibrating molecules manifesting into form. You're like, oh my God, it's a total illusion. It's a total facade. It's a mirage. There really is no physical except through energy manifesting into what appears to be form. But the key word is appears. It's just an appearance. It's not solid. It's really not solid. Awesome. All right, thank you, everyone. I'm done. So I'm going to stop recording. I'll look forward to seeing our live group next week. And if you're watching this through YouTube or wherever you're finding this, I hope you're enjoying the whole journey. All right, so thank you, everybody. I will see you in a week. And of course, I'm still here when we stop recording. If there's anything else you want to share. Good night, all.